Welcome back, everybody. All right, today I have a celebrity, if you will. His face isn't strange to social media or YouTube or anything of the sorts. Um, Today I have Dakota. We're going to talk about building a business or putting together a strategy, if you will, on how to maybe take a pair of geckos or dream of your a vision, if you will, of a dream pair of animals and turn it into something lucrative. Um, I know everybody probably knows who you are, but if you don't mind, I hate doing this to you, but can you give us a quick rundown on how you maybe got started into this? The
Yeah,
gecko thing, I guess it is. I mean, Dakota keeps all types of stuff if you guys don't know. But today we're going to try to keep it to just the geckos.
for sure. So I started breeding crested geckos. I want to say I've been doing crested geckos for about 8 years, 6 years as Dakota Blue Exotics, and then two was just a little hobby project. But we started off with just three little Dalmatian crested geckos, and I was really Dalmatian's always been my favorite gene. I love the progression of it. It kind of sucks when you're selling babies because no one sees with the progression trait. This thing was 5 spots, could end up with like 200 spots when it grows up, but a lot of people
Yep.
don't understand that. But it's real cool to watch the animal evolve as it grows. So it's always been a fun little passion of doing that. But we started with that, then we got into moved into some gargoyles as well, Chihuahua, lychees now. We've been doing this will be my second season with them. And we've dipped our toes with the morphs and genes, the frappuccinos, caps, lily whites. But at heart, I'm still a super Dalmatian guy. That'll always be my favorite gene with the cresteds.
Me too, man. I mean, I hate that people are so and maybe you can relate, maybe you can't, but I'm sure people out there can. When you get into the hobby, it's usually one of like three morphs to catch your eye with crested geckos if you don't know about them, right? It's a super bright stuff, right? Like something that's like abnormally bright, or something with a whole lot of spots, or it's something with the whites, right? So it's going to be whites, colors, or whatever. But it's typically, from my experience, people fall in love with Dalmatians. I think it's so ironic that after people learn a little bit or get more into the hobby, they all of a sudden turn into these elitists, these purists, and like, oh my god, it's got a spot, I don't want it. But it's that spot that brought you to the species in general, right? Like they're just I, I I think that they're great. I don't want to say beginner like crested geckos because I've been doing it for 7, 8 years and I still love them. Still, hey, top favorite gene. I guess you would call it a gene, right? It's not really a morph. Like Dalmatian is just it's a gene or a trait.
Yeah, I
It's
don't know
tricky,
that
right? Like I
you
don't
get
know
into
how
like the
you.
science of it when that
Yeah,
I want to say it's like a dominant trait.
yeah.
Like
So
no
they're
matter
my
what, it'll
favorite.
have Dal spots if one of the parents has Dal spots in
Yes.
just some variation.
hmm So super dowels in general are my favorite. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but I feel like a lot of people that come into the hobby initially love Dalmatian spots. Love animals with Dalmatian spots. Like this one's got a spot there, that one's got a spot there. The kids love the Dalmatian spots. Like everybody loves the Dalmatian spots. And then give these same people a year or two into the hobby, and I don't want an animal with any spots. Like can't have any spots. Like no spots, no spots. So I think it's kind of like people are lying to themselves. Like they have to be. You could like maybe not prefer spots on certain genes or with certain traits, but we all love Dalmatians, man. I mean, how do you not love a gecko that's just littered with 100 spot, 200 spots? I mean, they're beautiful animals, man. They're amazing.
It's awesome. Personally, over here, I'm not. I call them the spot Nazis. I'm not one of those. Some of when I first started like spending money on these high end morphs, I don't believe my cap has any spots, but my lily white does. But it just had such a nice high coverage that I didn't really care about the 6 spots. Um, I understand. I feel like we need those kinds of people, as annoying as they may be. It's the same thing I think with like the lineage people and the locale people getting a little off top, green tree pythons, carpet
No, go. I
pythons,
love it.
keeping that line pure. I feel like it's some of those things we need in the hobby, or else we will end up with geckos without any spots. So they're
I
at some
agree.
point a necessity. But personally, over here, I'm not too. If the animal looks nice, I can overlook a couple of spots on it.
I understand. I definitely understand that. I mean, if once someone's worked with them, you'll understand that they're not necessarily super hard to get rid of. You know, I've had some amazing animals come to me that I didn't, again, necessarily want the spots on. You know, I love my spots, but I prefer them where I want them, if that makes any sense. But it's not hard to get. I have some tangerine lines that I work with crested geckos, and you know, originally there was, you know, some of the founding animals had some spots, but it wasn't very hard to start producing tangerines with zero spots. Now, whether they're recessive or, you know, if those babies will produce ones, I really don't know. But they're not. It's not. It shouldn't be you know, like you said, an end all with your lily. If an animal has a trait that really outshines that alleged flaw or whatever, what's it really matter, you know? I mean, so with these animals, when you started, were you looking to I kind of like stole the mic here. Were you looking to go high end? Like, what were you looking? What did you? Who did you have in mind for a clientele? Like, what type of market did you plan on like providing?
Oh man, when I started this, I was like, what would that be? 22, I want to say. 2019, so I was like 22, 23. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to make geckos. I think at this point, even now, I don't really go for the high end stuff. I've tried it. I tried it a lot last year, and the market crash with Cresties really kind of pushed the brakes on that. I like making kind of like the midline animal and just stuff I personally think looks pretty. So I don't think I'll ever be over here making those like multiple $1,000, you know, whatever morph that's out there. I
Yeah.
see like we keep going even further than that. Now we've got like Cap Exanthic lilies, we got Sable Lily, Puzzle. I don't even know anything about Puzzle. I kind of stopped with that like the high end stuff, and now I
Yeah.
really just want to focus on making cool stuff that could be a good pet. It's you're not going to see me making like Petco animals over here, but kind of that middle of the line road is where I want to stick at. Just pretty stuff when it comes to my new cow.
Nice, healthy, quality, sound animals, right? Like you do. I watch what you do, man, and I mean, personally, I think you have some great animals. I mean, Richie's no slouch, though. You're hard to get anything. It's hard to get anything bad from Richie, right? Like if you get anything from him, it's
I want to say like 60% of my stock is from Richie at this point.
dude. Between him and Boris is like where all my stuff is from, you know. But I tell people too, you know, and it kind of sucks because I see a lot of people do a lot of good, you know, producing a lot of animals, but I'll also kind of preach like when you find someone that's done you right, you stick with them, right? Like I know it sounds crazy because people may have things that you don't, you know, the person you're loyal to or whatever may not have, and you may have to shop around kind of. But I'm like, when I find someone that has something or has done me right, and I've always gotten good animals from them, I have the tendency to stay with them. You know, that's neither here nor there.
Well, no,
When you
I completely agree. I think I get all of my new animals. I probably get from 3 different people at this point. I usually don't go past who my clientele, because those are the guys that I like their projects. It's stuff that I work with too. They make nice stuff and so on. So I usually have like one. Richie's usually my like rare gecko guy. So like any of the day stuff is all from Richie, except the standing eye isn't from him. Josh, my little Tokay group, I'll call them, is that's usually where I get all my Tokay gecko stuff. Is one of them.
Yeah, man, dude, I could go on about the Tokays for a minute too, but I seen this one. What is the blue? And I feel like a retard for not knowing, but they're like a blue, but they have black spots and black eyes. What is that? Just a
Oh, I think you're talking. So, Jimmy. Jimmy has 2 things. So Gecko and Gecko. He has the blueberry morph, which just kind of sounds like that, but he also has another gecko that he recently posted, which is supposedly melanistic, and for some reason just still keeps the spots like that. It's a really
okay.
cool animal. But he
That's the one
just
I'm talking
started.
about. That's the
Yeah,
one I'm
that
talking about. He
he
just
calls that
posted it
one
the other.
melanistic, and then the
That thing is
blueberries, I think he's just
crazy
producing
looking.
babies of them.
Crazy looking, man. They're again is killing me to try to, you know, stay in the new cow lane like with the conversation because I just have so many questions about the Tokays. But dude, they're coming up, man. You're gonna wind up like
See, I have like comparatively to all these other guys, I have such a small stock. Like I'm starting to get like some cool stuff in, but like guys like Jimmy, man, Jimmy has like some. He just posted another picture of like some geckos I've never seen before. He's like, hope these prove out this year. I'm like, what is this? I didn't even know this was in America.
Well, maybe they're not. He was on the other podcast with us, and he was talking about his importer. You know how he has a guy in Indonesia, I guess, that he works with, and he pretty much like throughout the year he'll show him animals, but he doesn't ship them all at one time. He keeps them until he has an order big enough to like send over. So then when he finally gets like 20 animals or something that's worth shipping, he'll have his importer hold all those animals. Then when he has enough, he sends them all over.
Yeah, I took place in that. I guess it was last year. Yeah, that's where
Really?
one of my Diablo, that big
Really?
chunky male. I believe that was from. I want to say it was Jimmy. Him. The couple of people go in on that.
Do any other countries have like what you guys are doing in the U.S. with the Tokays? Is anybody like this hip with the morphs and the like really honing in on them?
Maybe Korea, but I'm not
Really,
100% sure. I know the Indo guys. The Indo guys still do take the Tokay thing super
really.
seriously. There was just someone. I can't remember where they're from. It's like their username's like Wall Alligator or like Wall Dot Alligator, but they just produced a double visual of Super Red mixed with Diablo, which just created like the craziest looking animal.
That's interesting because I really feel like they're the next they're and not even I shouldn't say the next animal to take off because they really have been on the cusp for a while. I think it's just getting those animals in the right people's hands that are you know educated enough, I guess, to know what to do with them, like what you guys are doing. You know what to pair to what and how to go about it. It's it's interesting to watch. Like I just have a Tokay as a pet because I think they're incredible animals, like super intelligent. Like they are. Damn, it's hard to bash my lychees or my chihuahuas because I love my chihuahuas. But the way my Tokay looks at me, bro, she's not stupid. She's no slouch, man. She's
They're
like
awesome, man.
super super inquisitive, man. Like she'll look, and if I don't have something for her, like if she gets the sense that I'm just going in the enclosure to bother her, she's not having it. But if I have like a bug on my tongs or she can see I'm going with water or something, she'll just stay where she is. But if she's assessed the situation and she's not up for it, not happening. Other animals just act the same, I guess, all the time. They act different to whatever you're doing. If I don't know how to really explain it, but they can sense what you're doing. It's just interesting, man. Super
Yeah,
interesting.
I think Tokays will get bigger. I don't think they'll ever be the next big gecko. And that
Mm.
just comes from they need a bigger enclosure. You're going to need to do things differently. I mean, people use ambient heating. I used to. I can't. And this place is just the basement doesn't work as well as my old place. But a lot of people do that ambient. If not, then you're going to have to do what I do, where I have like 12 basking lights on the
Yeah.
enclosures. And then the big thing is the fact that the bonding process. So it's not like a
Mm.
crested where you can just you can put a crested with anything and it'll breed with it if you give it enough time. Tokays, it's rough. My only like unidentified Tokageki mutation I've been trying to prove out. The first year I only have ever gotten one clutch from her, and one baby survived that, and he's still growing out to try to line breed back to prove that out. But in the meantime, that girl went through 4 different males that she just didn't like. I would take them, and then the last one I left in with her for, I want to say they were together for 8 months until I got one single clutch of eggs, and she never laid another after that.
Wow. What do you think? What do you think that is? She just doesn't like the males. She's just
Yeah, I think it comes
bonding.
from that bonding process. Is that
You
she's
know
just
what's
like,
ironic because I don't remember who I was talking to, and I don't know if it was like an official study or not. But I was talking to someone who's pretty. I don't remember who, but I think the person, they weren't just like some dummy making an assumption. They were saying that some of them, these Tokays, are known to pair bond so tightly that they'll never rebond with another male if they've ever been paired. Like some of these wild animals were paired in the wild. They take them out of the wild. They'll eternally look for their mate. They'll never repair again. And I was, I don't know what proof they have to go on it, but I remember like listening and I was like, really? Like, are they that smart that they would just go on for the rest of their lives and never mate again because they know that that's not their mate? Like, that's super interesting. Certain birds do, for sure. Like,
Yeah, so with mine, some of mine I'll keep them paired because it's like reduced pattern, right? Reduced pattern, it's not that crazy of a gene, and I don't really have anything to pair it with, so I'll let it pair bond with a female because I'll just keep them together. But others, like some of these more higher end morphs, you do gotta like, I wouldn't keep them together, and there is a process to once you separate, you got to give the male and the female a minimum of 6 weeks away from like in solitary before putting them with another male, or you won't get that bonding process.
that's so interesting, man. I'm surprised more people aren't out there doing like field work and stuff. I have a good buddy of mine, Ryan Jefferson. He lives over in Bali. He's from here in Connecticut, but he moved to Bali, like created this whole life for himself. He owns a Mexican restaurant, a taco stand in Bali, in Indonesia. And he does a shit ton of surfing and stuff. And underneath, he sends me pictures all the time. Underneath his board bag, his surfboard bag, there's like a family of tokays, like on the side of his house. There's all these little eggs glued to the stucco on his house. And he's always sending me pictures of the tokays in the morning. They're no like crazy morph or anything, but seeing them in the wild, like, it's beautiful, man. They're a beautiful animal to see out there. It's something special.
Siri is she talked at the Gecko Symposium. I believe she did a talk on that. She's a wealth of information for like deep diving into like tokay behavior, the maternal stuff,
Really?
and everything that goes into it. I'm still like the newbie on the block. I've been doing this I think 4 or 5 years with tokays.
That's still a significant amount of time as long as you've been doing. Because, dude, I mean, you're being modest and humble about it. But I watched you from when you started this, bro. Like, you made big moves. I mean, from a couple of animals, and then, like, when you had that cave gecko, you did some cave gecko videos, to vending at flora fauna type shit. Like, I watched the whole evolution from this whole little thing you've been doing, dude. And people don't just do this, bro. Like, people,
we still got the caves. I still have one pair of caves. The female's
really?
Just
I think you were telling me that the other day. You said something, yeah.
Yeah, she's not old enough. I'll probably hold her back for another season because I'm in no rush to breed them. But yeah, we still have one pair of the cave geckos I kept back.
What was the first geckos? Were crested geckos the first geckos, period, that you tried to breed and were like planning on making a business around?
Yep, it was crested.
It was always crested
I started
geckos?
out with I had one bearded dragon, and then I got Petco crested gecko, who's still here. He's got to be 10 or 11 at this point.
No shit.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
crested geckos were the first. The 3 tiger dalmatians. That's always been my favorite combo morph. I love the contrast, especially. I switch between, I like the light and then the darker orange, so like the light yellow to dark orange. But with that breakage of the tiger striping and then the contrast of the black and red spots, I always think that's like my perfect crested gecko.
Oh, yeah. Have you managed to get any? And I know I've heard other people over the years. Have you managed to ever get any red spots on a yellow animal?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, I have.
No shit.
Well, I have one that's like a bright yellow, and then I have a couple that are like more orange.
So I don't know who, I was listening to another podcast with someone somewhere, and they were saying that it was, they kept striking out, like it just wasn't going to happen. They wanted to make a yellow super Dow with red spots, but he was trying. Maybe it was Brian from Altitude or something. To the point, I didn't even think that it was possible. That's freaking cool.
Yeah, I did it. It was the most unassuming male ever. I bought him for I think it was the last $50 in my wallet. I bought him as a baby. I was just like, hey, I have $50. I'm about to leave the show. Let me grab this. Just a tiny little thing. I grew him out. He didn't grow out to be spectacular. It was a yellow animal as well. And just like a couple of red spots, a couple of dowels. And I put him in, and that male made some of my best super Dalmatians that I work with today. It was in like it's crazy when you look at like the animals I produce. It's like this is the male. This thing was like 10 small spots and a couple of red spots. Made this thing with like 250 spots with a mix of red and black.
It's crazy how those. I wish I knew more. I feel so stupid in comparison to some people for as long as I've been working with these things because I just have no real like desire to. I like making, like you said, I like making what I enjoy. I don't want to get into all of the real science, why this does that and that does that and all this stuff. I mean, I know like genes and traits and stuff, but like the real molecular science of it and stuff would just give me a headache and it would start to feel like school and I just wouldn't want to do it. But it is amazing how these animals that they just outproduce themselves sometimes. Like you're saying, like I have a similar situation. I got a gecko with a couple spots on him. I don't know, maybe 50 spots, say. He doesn't make a single baby that doesn't have hundreds, and you'd look at him and be like, is he really even a Dalmatian? Would you call him a Dalmatian? He's definitely not a super Dalmatian, but he makes incredible freaking babies, man.
Yeah, sometimes, man, everyone talks about lineage. You want to look at the baby pictures, brother. Like, what does this proven male produce? Because I'll tell you, we have my girlfriend's gecko, Shank. That gecko's in like bright orange, really filled out ink spot down. Not just the tiny spots, but he's covered with these ink spots. I paired him last season, and the geckos that were coming out of that thing, man, I was so disappointed.
Really?
It was like the same. It was like the same as any other male. I was like, "Are you?" I expected brilliance, and I didn't get it. And then you look at Spice, the thing, 10 spots, and it's producing that.
So that does have to make you think, though, if it's maybe not a visual thing and it is something with the DNA, if it carries like a copy of the gene and maybe it's not as simple as people, because I've even heard on the Gecko Pod, AJ that's on there talk about is, something like that. He's got these animals with these crazy spots and they've never produced super dolls for him.
I've seen my buddy Andrew, I do a co-project with him. That's where I got all my incredible gargoyle geckos from him, and he was telling me that like you have to look at like 4 generations back when you look at these animals because they'll produce crazy stuff. I had my black and white pair produced this animal with the boldest orange striping I've ever seen. I held it back for a little bit because I just want to see what happens with it, but it's like these two no color on them, black and white. And they produce this animal with like the boldest yellow or orange striping I've seen, and stuff like that. Where like it's kind of like you can't just look at it from the point's eye view, especially with gargoyles, because you go into like more, I guess phenotyping, like line bred traits instead of actual genetic mutations.
Do you have a preference of the two? Like, which one do you like working with one over the other? Gargs versus crested geckos?
I think I'm going to say Gargs, but I think that's because I've worked with Cresteds for so long, and Gargs are a little bit of I've only worked with like a couple of pairs until I started this project with Andrew, and it's real cool watching the Gargs. It's kind of the same thing with Cresteds, just Gargs are a little bit, they go through like a cooler maturity, like evolution, where an animal with like just these little stripes ends up being like this crazy thing when it grows up. So I think Gargs are a little bit cooler in that way. It makes life a little bit more easier. I like the phenotyping stuff because you have to have like a clear picture in mind of what you're making versus just putting like 2 good geckos together. You got to think like, what do I want? Do I want bolder striping? Do I want more color in the animal? What am I looking for with this?
See, I know nothing about. I have one pair of Gargs, but I don't know much about them. What did you guys start pairing yours for the season yet? Did you start putting them together?
Yep, they're all paired right now.
So what are you doing when you're taking your Gargs and you want to make I mean, what would a goal be? Tell us about some of the projects, maybe if it's not unveiling anything that you don't want to, some of the projects you have going this year with your Gargs and what you're looking for, what you're trying to achieve.
So with my Gargs, I basically just put whichever animals are most compatible with each other. So we have a lot of like red-based red stripe stuff that I'm going to put, a lot of Phantomi red stripe. Some stuff I like to get a little bit cooler with. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. My phone just like went off 7 times at once, trying to figure out if it was an emergency.
All right, is everything all right?
Yeah, everything. I don't know. Some people text one line at a time, and it's like, just put it all in one message. Come on. But then there are some geckos, there are some gargs that I'm doing where one of them's a red stripe, one of them's an orange stripe, so I'm trying to make like a combination of the two. I think the red and orange stripe stuff is really awesome. Last year we paired reticulated to my boldest red stripe, and they made like some absolutely incredible super blotches. I
Really?
kick myself. This is one of my most recent regrets and learning opportunities. um I sold this like high red super blotch ammo for like $200. After I sold it, I think it was Richie I was talking to. I was like, what would you put this ammo worth? Because I saw he posted some of his for like really high amount. He's like, yeah, that's about a $650 animal. And I'm like, I sold it for two.
Damn,
Great.
that sucks. Was it at a show or was it online?
It was online. But after I guess I could have been an asshole and been like, never mind, but I feel like your reputation in that aspect, being known as the guy that like stops because he realized versus like, I'll miss out on $400 to keep the reputation intact.
Dude, not for nothing, man. I don't brown nose for shit. I could care less about what anybody thinks, man. I've been through too much shit in 40 years of life to lie or kiss anyone's ass. I'm a consumer. I'm a big consumer, dude. I've never heard a bad word about your business. I've never heard a bad word about you doing business. Like, and it's I
That's
definitely
crazy because a
never
lot
say
of people
anybody's
talk a
names
lot of
on
smack
here,
about me.
ruins anybody's business by any means. But that's hard. That's hard out here. I personally know some really, really good people that people have, been through some shit with. And now there's two sides to every story, no doubt, but I've never heard a bad thing about your business or any dealings that you've had, man, which is good, man. That's a good thing. And for reasons like things like you just said, that will ultimately, help you achieve this bigger picture here, with what you're doing and growing and how far and how fast you've grown. Like you do have to see how much you've accomplished in a short amount of time, right? Like when there's guys out here that have been doing this for 25 years and don't have the following you do, don't have an online store, they're not making the sales you're making. You got to be proud at the end of the day, right?
It's a cool thing. I'm very much a pessimist with most things, so I'm always looking. I think Brian Barczyk made a good example. I remember listening to him on the podcast where he's talking about, he's like, I'm always looking at like what the next thing is, that I don't take time to appreciate what's in the present.
Fucking Brian, man. That dude learned a lot, man. It's a sad, sad story, man. So
Absolute legend.
so sad. So smart, so young, so just imagine the things that he's seen, the evolution of the hobby and everything. I mean, when I was a kid in the 80s, this dude was doing shit. There was a magazine, Reptile Magazine. It was really him and Kevin McCurley, like back in the 80s, like that's how long this dude's been around. And I knew nothing other than these people I saw in magazines, and I mean, damn, the things that he's learned, the things that he's seen, the evolution,
I think the best part about Brian is, especially when you get, this is more like on the YouTube influencer side. You'll meet some influencers and they'll be like, oh wow, this guy's actually like full of himself, asshole, whatever. They let the ego and the clout get to them. Man, when I met Brian, just the most down to earth dude you will ever meet. Just a cool, calm guy. It was awesome. He's the nicest dude ever. When I was like the third or fourth guest when he started his podcast. And we went down there. I had a problem with my rental car, being my rental car, so we Ubered like $80 to get there from the airport hotel. And I was like, yeah, I just got to Uber back. He's like, you to Uber? He's like, it's like an hour away. He's like, I'll drive you. He left the zoo that was open hours at the time to drop me back off, and he just shared some of his stories. It was the coolest part. Like, that's like a core memory I'll never forget.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad you got to experience that, man. A time's gonna come where all the people that met him are they've faded on their own, dude. Like you got to meet a real legend, man. Not even just meet, but build a bond, build a friendship with a real legend. That's super cool, man. That's super cool. Hmm. Has he ever done anything that's inspired you? Maybe have you changed or adjusted anything you do since you've met him?
Yeah, I think the biggest things he's inspired me to do is trying to figure out what's the best, how to frame this right. I think so. Obviously, when you have like a big Instagram account or big anything, you'll get a lot of questions, and most people will just kind of like brush through it and not really pay it attention. I've kind of made it a point to try to give some actually good, like actually sit down and write these messages and reply to these people. And one of the biggest things I'll remember is fucking Logan from M95 Genetics. He was just another guy that asked me, simple Toke Gecko question. I took the time to talk to him. We became great friends. And now this guy, years later, he's surpassed me when it comes to Toke Geckos. The guy owns like, I think 70. He's got more morphs than me. He's doing bigger and better stuff. And I still was like, just that conversation right there. It's one of those things where like, you don't know who the next big person is going to be, right? So take some time and actually talk and build the community.
Well, that's huge. That's huge. That's huge. And I think like even you do that well. Even with like your Friday night video things, like it takes a lot. You don't really bash anybody, right? Like you like call a spade, if you will, but you don't with the following that you have, you haven't really let it get to your head per se, man. Like you're still just super cool, still about the animals. You still respond to people. You still just shoot the shit. I mean, I think that says a lot, man. 'Cause I've seen quite a few people hit their little fame and crash, and now they're nowhere to be found. And they weren't exactly the nicest people. It's
Yeah, I'm waiting till the 100,000. As soon as I get the silver play button, that's when I'm just going to be a complete asshole. just the most insufferable person you've met.
Fucking A. So what are some plans for the future? What does Dakota have in store for 2028? What are you planning for a couple years down the road? Are you thinking that far ahead, or?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully, I'm hoping to get a new facility by the end of this year. It depends on how well I do this year, but hopefully moving out of here is in the cards. But 2028, definitely more Toke Geckos. Toke Gecko, I'm going to focus a lot more on the Toke morphs and the combos going on with them. Not much with the new Cal. I'm pretty satisfied where I am with my new Cal stuff. Probably more Leechies, because I do really enjoy baby Leechies. They're such a cool
awesome, right?
little thing to make. But as far as that goes, I think kind of just keep doing what we're doing. Keep on with the Toke stuff. I really want to get into rare lizards. I just saw you had another podcast you did with Justin.
Yeah.
Justin's he's gonna be my number 4 guy I start buying reptiles from. So all of his like the Colodes lizards, the Sri Lankan pygmy lizards, stuff like that. Just stuff that no one really knows about. I want to have that stuff over here and be producing that.
Well, you're starting to get that image. I mean, I know it's intentional, but I don't want to say image like it's a look, but you're starting to, you always, even from when I first started following you and watching you, you've always been like a diverse kid. You had the bearded dragon, tegus, geckos. You always had like a lot of animals, right? You had a parrot, your birds. You always have a lot of things, which is...
I used to be really dumb, and I would get everything to breed everything without understanding it. And then like I had like 5 Quince monitors, 3 Argus monitors, 3 Tegus, and I never got like any eggs out of any of them, but the overhead for all of that stuff killed me. That was like one of those breaking points of the business where I thought I was going to go under.
It's learning though. You learned, right? Like I'd imagine over the years you've probably had to regroup a couple times, right? Like, I mean, you're kind of in the phase now, right? If you're maybe not phasing out New Caledonia stuff, but you're honing in on the couple projects you like, right? So you can do some other things. I mean, it's it is what it is. It's how we learn, right? You have to adjust, right?
Yeah, definitely downsizing on the stuff that's just, in my opinion, just overly saturated and I don't need to be making this stuff for it to go. I'd rather be doing cool stuff.
Bro.
We focus
on
the
animals
geckos
sometimes, and I'm like, I just don't need, they're cool. I like them. But 1, I don't need more of that trait or gene. And 2, the market damn sure doesn't need any more. There's so many people doing it better than I am. Like, let me just go down this untraveled path, man. Where do you see the I don't know, you don't have to really like stick to the New Cal thing. It's just something I was trying to do, but where do you see the gecko hobby and the reptile hobby going in the future?
I think the gecko hobby. I think new stuff is definitely coming out of the way. Especially, I've seen a lot of these. Even at Flora Fauna, I started seeing the Flora Fauna is like the new Cal place, right? Like everyone that works with New Cal goes to Flora, and a lot of these guys that made big money doing New Cals are starting to branch out into cooler stuff. Well, being subjective, cooler stuff. Brian from Who's Geckos, I saw he's got some tokeis now, I believe, at least a pair. He has some Colodis now from Justin. I saw you got a pair of Juvies from him. So stuff, I think it's going to start branching out into stuff as the market just becomes too saturated with things like crested geckos. I think they'll definitely stay, especially since we keep unlocking new morphs are starting to come out. They'll always have their place, but I feel like it's the same with ball pythons, man. I think people are ready. It's been enough like decades now where we kind of want to move to something new. Honestly, I think live streaming and these auction Palm Street's doing as like I don't know why the New Cal community has just attached itself to these Palm Street auctions. It's been very interesting to see, but doing stuff like live, almost like in your house reptile shows, right, where you show off stuff like that, just getting a lot more interactive with the community versus how it's been, because when there's just so many people doing it, just trying to find any way to branch yourself out.
Yeah. And education too. I mean that's one huge plus, I think, is that people, I feel that people are trying to do a lot more educating on rare species, I guess. Like, have you seen that? I don't know what it's called, but it's like some type of online expo they're doing. It's coming up. I've seen it advertised in a few places. They're doing some sort of online seminar, like a gecko symposium almost, but they're doing it online, like virtually.
Is
Have
it
you seen anything like that?
Is it just with reptiles? Is it the one where it's Justin's? It's like Justin's Colodis as the cover.
Is it?
We might not be talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I'll send you the link later.
Seen
it might be, but I think it's cool. It's cool. I don't know what the details, the specifics of it are, but there's that. You ever listen to the podcast Coffee and Cresties with the girl from Canada?
Yeah.
She was talking about it the other day. I was listening to her episode with Robbie from Robbie's Reptiles, I guess is his name. So she was talking about it before, like, he came on the show, and I had actually seen the advertisement before I heard her, and then it all started like making sense. I was like, oh shit, that's what it is. But it's some type of like seminar where they have like a handful of breeders. I don't know who they exactly are, but in different, people that deal with different species, and they're pretty much giving different live seminars. I don't know.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it sounds.
It could be, and I could be completely wrong too. Who knows? Have you done a Palm Street yet? Have you thought about doing a Palm Street?
I haven't personally done one. I think some of my plants are on there, but I kind of forgot about it. I think, knock on wood, I might be getting a Palm Street sponsorship. We're still in the works of what exactly that entails, but you might be catching me on Palm Street Lives here pretty soon.
That'd be awesome. I'll be on there. I got approved to sell, and
that took forever for me. It took like a week to get approved.
Really? I got a number. Somebody gave me Veronica's number. I just called her up, and she was like, yeah, go on. The only thing I had to do was some onboarding something, and I ain't even gonna lie, I didn't do it.
I didn't call anyone. I just waited. I think maybe that was my mistake.
Well, you have a much bigger following than I do. I don't. Well, you should have got it faster then. But I mean, it's water under the bridge. I mean, I wrote down, like, because I think they're trying to like alleviate like issues or scams or anything, because you see the horror stories with Morph Market, believe it or not. People are getting scammed on Morph Market. They're selling animals that don't exist. And I guess Palm Street, from what I've gathered from the few people that I talked to that have done it, they're like, you can't bid on an animal unless you have an account. Like, your card is already in the account. They'll like, you have to. They're good for the seller, if that makes any more sense. Like, if you had animals going up for sale, you don't have to worry about 20 people bidding on an animal that you put up and not getting paid. Like, they can't bid if they don't have the funds on their card. So as they're bidding, I guess their card's getting validated or something.
Oh, I wonder if it's like what is it, like TikTok lives? I think TikTok you do like the gifts with tokens. I wonder if
Oh,
it's similar like that, like you have a certain amount of funds that are allocated.
maybe. I just Nature Nate, the kid Nate.
Yeah.
I just had him on a podcast, and like a couple days later, I didn't buy anything or bid on anything, but I was like, show the kid some love. I was like, he was doing his first Palm Street. I was like, oh, come on, man, I'll shoot the shit with you. So he was selling animals, and I was really, for the first time, watching how it works. Like paying attention to the app, and there was a couple issues. Like people did have active debit cards and tried to bid, and then it would say like unavailable funds or something, and the person had to, and they just had to Venmo him like while the live stream was going on, and they resolved it, but they wouldn't let some people bid for some reason.
Hmm.
But I guess it's a new platform, so there's probably there's bound to be some little kinks to
Yeah,
work out. But
especially turning from something like, I mean, I guess plants are living things, but going into like live animals is a whole different can of worms. It's interesting. It's I think it's super cool that they're trying to make that gap into the live animal market. Morph market's kind of been the king for, I
yeah,
can't tell you how long, and I see
it's
there's like
flora
other,
fauna or
I think
fauna classifieds for sure.
yeah, fauna classifieds. I think Show Me Reptiles has a like morph market type thing. I've never looked into it, but morph market's kind of been the thing. So it's cool. You have like almost a competitor that is trying to get their little slice of the pie.
And historically, no great business ever rose to the top, bro, without having a good competitor, and that's just a fact. I mean, look at life in general, banks, food stores. There's never been one great place without at least having to knock off a competitor, right? Like it's good for business,
Yeah,
and I'm sure they know that too. They have a good idea. I think that you would do good. I think that it fits your style very well, because you could do a live, like how you do your lives when you're doing your lives, and you view videos and shoot the shit with your guys and shit, the followers and whatever. Like you can literally do that while you have animals for sale. You don't have to have a clock on. It's, have you watched one or no? Have you watched like
I think I watched Tiki's one for like 10 minutes, and I saw Zero's Geckos was on it as well, and I think I looked at his, but I'm not like what I saw. I think this was a little bit ago, but I saw like lychees, like incredible lychees being sold for like $400. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, what a deal!
fuck, where were they when I was buying them?
That's what I'm saying. Got to get on those palm streets.
Fuck. That's I think though, again though, that you could turn it into your own little thing, man. I think it'd be cool. I would love to watch you on there, man. I would love to see how you cultivate it, if you will, because they give you a lot of options. You can have your store, right? You don't have to auction everything off. You can have a store set up with animals pre-listed, and then you can have your couple animals that you auction off while you shoot the shit or do whatever the hell you want to do with your followers or your audience or whatever. It would be cool. How many animals do you typically have for sale at any one given time, would you say?
Well, part of the reason why I haven't done any like those live auction things because I'm pretty low at the moment.
Really?
I think we have 20 or so left, so
Really?
not a lot. But I
That's
mean,
a good thing.
when we get up there, which usually like peaks at last season, we were doing well over 100, so not like massive numbers, but definitely it got to the point where I was like, I have too many fucking crested. I don't want to care for 120 crested gecko babies. That's kind of one of the main reasons why I downsized a lot of it. Was like it's just too many cresteds.
Gotta
If I had
feed them,
100
right?
tokays,
Like,
it would be different. There was like 20 tokays per 2x2.
mm,
That'd be cool. But with the cresteds, the Pangea formula, man, that's another thing. The crested gecko food, God, my facility will always like smell like crested gecko food, like because there's always there's one section where like it just gets a little too old and it starts smelling bad.
some it is what it is, brother. I can relate. Let's say that. Do you know? Again, I'm not here to bash. The last thing I want to do is bash anybody's business, any product or anything. But last night. I noticed I was running short on some the gecko mix that I have, and I was looking on. I don't know where I was. I think I was even on Amazon. So I'm looking at, somehow I wound up looking at ingredients for some of these foods. Dude, I can't believe that some of this stuff is even in some of these foods. Like rice bran, soy powders, no bugs at all. Like no bugs. Um super interesting, man. Very interesting that I'm glad that I actually wound up down that wormhole that I did, because I was under this illusion that all of these things had like bugs in the mix, like they all used a bug powder, and they all had, at least fruits or whatnot, and not mango flavoring, and you know banana powder with mango flavoring for a mango. Just interesting. Is there, and you don't have to name them, but is there any one brand that you stick to when you're feeding your animals, or anything that you've had better success with?
No, I find variety is my spice of
Yeah.
life. I keep changing it. But yeah, there's a lot of company. Definitely check out your ingredients if you are not with
Yeah,
whatever crested gecko food you're feeding.
absolutely.
There's a lot of people, excuse me. There's a lot of people that are using like whey protein and stuff, which I think it's weird doing like a milk byproduct.
Dairy. Yeah,
Yeah, a dairy byproduct
it's dairy.
for crested geckos. Something I do like that I was looking at with Blue River Diet is the fact that they do plant-based protein instead of whey-based, which is pretty cool. But I think Rapasha will always be my go-to. They've just been around for so long; their ingredients are rock solid. I
Yeah.
think they had that bad issue. I can't remember when. This was years and years back. They had like one faulty issue, and then people like kind of stopped trusting them because of that. But Rapasha's
Really?
always been my go-to. I do a
Tell me,
lot of
because
with
that's my
their
go-to too. I don't want to say names, but that's who I use. I love Rapashi.
Yeah, I love Rapashi, dude.
Uh,
I don't have problems with the animals eat fine with it. There's no weird stuff. I almost released a like 3-minute rant talking shit about one
yeah.
business. I'm not going to name it. I ended up not doing it, but there is one
Yeah.
business out there that's new to the food game that keeps
Ah.
doing like this negative press advertising. It's one of those things where like these companies are bad, which means my company is good. And that's just like that's not how you do it in
It
this
was an
community,
ugly
man.
look, bro. It was an
Yeah,
ugly look.
you don't see me
Uh,
being like, bro, Zero's geckos, those are bad. Get my geckos. Like that's just shitty. It's the same thing with the reptile products. Like, why do
yeah.
you need to talk shit in order
No.
to make your product seem good? Like, let the product speak for you.
Yeah,
But
they
not
cost
only
shit for
that,
that though. They
they
cost
talk
shit
a
for
lot.
it.
They talk shit about their product being better because X, Y, and Z. Their product is ass, brother. I can't stand. I got a sponsorship with them, and I ended up wholesaling because it was incredible. I was getting these for like 75% off, paying a quarter of what I would with the competitors. So I had like 10 pounds of this fucking food, and I couldn't stand it.
Mm.
It molds like within 24 hours. It smells bad. I could never get it to the great, like the amount of food, like dehydrated diet per
Yeah.
water you have to put into is like double the amount of any other ones to get like that good ketchupy
Mhm.
consistency. Overall, it was I was so glad when I got through my last bag. I was like, finally. And I don't just smell it in my room just constantly smelled like it. I have just nothing but negative things to say about that company. And the fact that they talk shit about their competitors just pisses me off, but I don't want to like, you know.
I never got it. I never tried it, and honestly, I don't want to sound like I'm some like weirdo loyalist, but I never bought it because of them talking shit that time when they put out that ad, and they were like, well, this is, these people use this or this, and pretty much just
Everyone
like,
knows who I'm talking about.
fuck yeah. I'm sure they do. I mean, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you just don't do that. I mean, you don't even see with the big companies. ZoomMed doesn't bash, Exoterra. They don't, it's just an ugly look. You don't, especially when you're trying to sell your product, right? You don't be like, oh, fuck those guys. My shit is better because we do this and they do that. Like you said, let your product speak for itself.
They
They just
can't
came
because
out
their
of
product
nowhere.
sucks. It's so bad. I cannot stress enough how all the negative things. And to that point, yeah, I don't want to name names. So I don't want to like bring, but I had
Nah,
another
don't.
at one of the shows. I had another breeder come up to me because this was like I think I tried it like once. And I was like, maybe this is a bad experience. I used to sell it at shows. And this person was like, "Oh, you're with this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got a really good deal." So I gave it a shot. And to your point, he's like, I didn't want to touch them just because of their negative advertising. Like the way they go about themselves just doesn't vibe with me. I was like, that's a really good point. And then
No?
I tried their food for longer, and I was like, wow, that's even a better point when their food sucks.
How are you liking the? Did you wind up getting a sponsorship with the Blue River?
I did get the Blue River sponsorship. I have no
How are,
complaints.
how are your animals? Animals are liking it. Another one.
Animals
I
are
haven't
liking
tried
it.
them.
I have
That's really just 'cause I haven't been able to find it. Well, I haven't been able to find like all of the flavors like to choose for myself.
I think
What?
on their website they have like the trial thing, which is like I don't know, 7
Oh,
2-ounce
really?
things,
Yeah, I
or
would
like
buy
just
that. I
two
would
ounces of
definitely
the food.
try it.
It's good. Well, this might the problem is I have like 8. I have the giant 4-pound bag, so I might just be over pouring. But personally, to me, I feel like it gets that good texture.
Yeah.
You don't have to put as much food to get that similar texture. Smell test, good. It smells great. And the geckos seem to love it. I haven't any problems with getting anyone to
Good.
feed off of it. And then, like I mentioned, I do like the plant-based protein that they use versus the whey.
Well, it's definitely more natural. I'm not gonna lie. I was reading one of the ingredients one time. I don't know, maybe even been Rapashi, who knows? But there was whey in it. So I fairly big in like the human workout world. So I had some like ultra filtered, unflavored whey around. So I was like, let me see what this does. Let me just jazz it up a little bit. I put some in there. Dude, these things shit all over everything. Like, I mean, pissed out of their asses all over everything. I never put it in there again, man.
Yeah, the stomach scan. It's the same way I used to do a lot of real fruit with my diet. So I would mix like blueberries, banana,
Yeah.
whatever in there. But you can't do it too often because the same thing happens. They get the squirts from it.
It was terrible. Fucking terrible. What are you buying a lot of feeders? How many what are you doing for feeders for bugs for all your collection, tokays, everything? I mean, you got a lot of animals that eat just bugs too, huh?
It's funny how like my food order slowly changes. I used to get a lot of the like 3/4 inch crickets, and now I'm kind of down to like I only probably get like 1,000 3/4s, and I'm getting like 3,000 1/4 inch crickets in order. But we do a lot of crickets, and then for tokays, if I can get them on the bowl feeding, super worms, man. Those
Really?
tokays, I always wonder. I was like, like my tokays were never big on just crickets. I just couldn't get them to that beefy size. Man, as soon as they get on super worms, I'll tell you, some of these geckos have like doubled in size since, and not just like
Really?
fat, chunky, but just
Yeah.
big animals now.
And how are you doing? You're just putting them in a like a ceramic bowl or something?
Yep. So I just do the I think it's the 6.5 diameter deli cups, usually like show
Okay.
deli cups. So I just throw super worms in there, and then when it's cricket time, I'll toss crickets inside the bowl, something that's super active, and that kind of gets them going after a couple of weeks to get used to it. And it gets to the point now, there's some geckos where they'll hear me plopping the super worms in other cages, and they'll like get stationary right next to the bowl, waiting for me to drop the super worms in there for them.
That's awesome. I gotta try mine too. She's just she's a yearling, but I try. I haven't. She won't tong feed, right? Like I can't. She will not take anything off of tongs. Once or twice she has, but it's that rare. Like she won't. I got her from Richie, believe it or not. She won't. She has to like hunt for herself. But I've tried to put super worms in a bowl, and they just freaking crawled out somehow, man. So I'm wondering. Well, I'm assuming. I guess technically, I don't know that she didn't eat them. I never dug the enclosure up. I could be wrong. But when I put them in front of her, she doesn't do anything. But my point is, I want her to eat other things.
See, I did just like the regular. I think they're like the 4-inch ones. They have a
Mm.
smaller wall, and I knew they were getting out because all of a sudden, like, there's superworm beetles all over my okay enclosures that I have to keep grabbing out. But yeah, just the 6.5s. Did I move it? I might have moved it actually. But they have a thicker wall enough where the superworms can't crawl out of them. And then I just throw the crickets in there, and some will stay, and that seems to be the best way to get them like enticed to go after it.
Huh. What you have any other little tips or tricks if someone were to ask you about tokays or something that you've learned over the years on how to get them to eat different foods, or you know little tricks that you've learned to maybe help them grow a little better?
Oh man, that's superworms has been the best thing
Superworms?
for me. They're a little fatty, so I don't like feed them in excess, but you
Mm.
really don't have to because they'll like I'll probably do superworms like once a week. I'll just throw a handful. I get them by the thousand, and I'll just like toss a handful in there for the pair or whatever, and they just beef up. But you can do the same thing with the bowl method with whatever, red runners, dubia, just anything that's not as active, so they're
Yeah.
not really going to have that instinct. It's the crickets in the bowl, something that they're already used to. I think that gets them to really go after what's in them. Once they realize that that's food in the bowl, they'll start recognizing.
How often are you feeding your tokays or your bug eater? Well, I guess your tokays. How often do you feed them a week?
Babies. So I'm awful at this. I don't have like a schedule for it. I like
Right.
looking at my stuff. I'm an observer. I don't really hold my pets. I just like
Yeah.
looking at them. So I look in every enclosure. And once I see there's like no crickets left in there, or there's like one or two, I'll start tossing more in. Usually for the tokays, it's superworms once a week, and then I'll probably throw some crickets in there a couple of days later, and then that'll go into next week. And with the babies, I'm usually feeding like every 2 to 3 days, especially like my granite to het granite pair. They now have like 3 or 4 babies in there, so I'm really like tossing food in to make sure everyone's getting their fill.
Are you? I know I've asked you this in other podcasts, and I feel like an asshole, so don't take it as disrespectful. But are you pulling the babies out, or are you leaving the babies in with the parents?
I leave them in.
You do.
It's easier for me. There's I can't remember the study off the top of my head, but there's studies to show, and just actually anecdotally personal experience. I've artificially hatched out, like the eggs will fall, and I found if the eggs do fall, you should artificially incubate them because I've had them fall and I'll try to put them back, and the tokays, I assume the tokay's the one that either the mom or the dad will eat the eggs, even if the egg is good. If it's on the ground, they'll eat it. So I've
Oh
had
shit!
that happen a couple times where like it fell and I kind of just like put it in a little corner so it's not getting like fully misted.
Mm.
And then I come back like a couple of days to check on it and it's gone. I'll tear the whole enclosure up and it's not there anymore. So if that's the case, definitely artificially incubating it. But when they do hatch, they will recognize the babies, which is absolutely the coolest thing. I remember the first time I
Really
did it,
is.
I asked like 3 people and I kind of got like yeah, it should be fine. I'm like, okay. And I put the babies in. This is like, I don't know, 3 years ago. I put the babies in with the adult and he ran right under the dad and the dad tucked it under its chin. It was the
That's
coolest thing.
awesome.
So they'll remember the babies. I don't know if it's they remember their babies or that it's a baby.
Mm.
I haven't tried it. I don't think I will try like taking a gecko out of its enclosure and putting it in another and see what happens.
Yeah.
But from the science that I've done so far, I have found that like you can artificially incubate, hatch the geckos out, and put them back in. But they're especially during the first couple of days of life, they'll actually eat the poop from the parents to get that gut fauna going
Okay.
and
Like
beneficial
skinks.
health.
Yeah.
And then overall, I just find that they grow better and they grow better and faster. I'll have babies like I used to have some in like the 8x12s, and they
Mm.
just like they never grew. It was difficult to get
Yeah.
them eating and stuff. But when they're in there, they're like good to go, and then they're ready in like 6 weeks. I'll post them. Usually, I sell them fast enough. After like 8 weeks, I'll start pulling because they'll get to a good
Okay.
size, and I don't want to risk anything going wrong in any fighting or anything like that. But I keep them in for usually the 2 month period unless I sell them beforehand. If I do sell them, what I will do is I'll remove the baby, put it in like an 8x12 or a 12x18 for a couple of weeks when they are ready to sell. And that way they're not, I just don't want them to get like super stressed out from going from
Yeah.
that family dynamic box to
Yeah.
someone's home and them struggle with that. So I want to make sure they're out, able to feed on their own, still good with all those stressors, and then have them go to the customer.
That's cool. That's super responsible, man. That's super thoughtful. That's acclimating them like that. I'm sure does them a huge justice. Just imagine going from like you're like with your family and it ripped out in a whole nother place by yourself. I mean, that probably does a lot for the animals. The animal's stress level.
Yeah, especially with
Super
tokays,
cool.
there's it's such a small community that people are buying, CBB babies. I want them to have that positive experience. I don't want it to be a
Yeah,
thing like, hey, I got mine and now it won't eat and it's been 2 weeks and it's getting skinny. I want them to be like kosher, good, have a good experience, and then continue to grow. I guess this niche in the hobby.
absolutely. Have you Is there any real like health concerns with captive tokays? Like, have you ever experienced anything? Is there anything like people should look out for? Like, if you're getting a new tokay, keep your eyes open for this, or are they pretty much sound when they're captive bred?
I think they're sound when they're captive bred. I mean, overall, they're a hardy species. You know, I've
They
had
really are.
tokays. I've had imports come to me that are like skin and bones, the most like just scrawny, and I've been able to bump them back up as long as they don't have like a huge parasite
Mm.
load on them. Then I can get them kicking within like a month or two. They look like a brand new animal. They're a super like tough, hardy species.
How are you doing that? If you don't mind, walk us through that. Like, how if you get an animal like a lot of people do at a show, and they're just gone to shit. I mean, they got no energy to even bite you. What would you do to bring one of those skin and bone animals back?
So I mean, I do this with like any wild caught animal. I put it in a small enclosure, quarantine, so it's away from all my other stuff. I keep it in a small enclosure. So for like, let's use adult tokays for example. Any adult import that comes in, I don't care if it looks great or if it looks bad. They go in quarantine. They go in a 12 by 18. So a nice small enclosure with a couple of hides to make sure they have a safe place. I miss the ever living shit out of that enclosure. I'll do that for a couple of days. Hydration's the biggest thing for animals. I'm really glad that I've seen like over the years the conversation has changed where it used to be with at least in my with tokays, the first thing was always, oh, panicure it. You got to deworm it. Send fecal, deworm it. If you have a fresh import and it looks bad, do not deworm that animal. You will kill it. Deworming, it's tough on the gut. It dehydrates an already dehydrated animal. Hydrate it, get it going, then I leave them alone. And after a couple of days, I'll throw food in there, see if they're eating, throw more food, try to get it established on the bowl so it gets the superworms, extra fats, extra proteins. And that's about it. It's a super. I'm glad the panic. A lot of people now, the conversation seems to switch now, where everyone's like, "No, don't do the panicure. Get it hydrated first." So I'm glad we're
Thank
going in the
God.
right direction with that. But when it comes to wild stuff, leave it alone. Especially with tokays, they're such a hardy species that if you just don't stress it, they'll most likely pull through. Now, if you do, if it's been a month, like with my paradox, it was a month, you know, it wasn't really growing, it still looked that bad shape. That's when you start looking at, okay, what are some parasite options? Let's get that fecal done and get
Yeah.
her on the right track. But that's only if I don't notice the animal if I notice the animal's not growing and getting some size on it after that, 3-4 week period.
Yeah. If they're eating and still not gaining weight and size, and
Exactly.
there's signs. I would hope to think that if people take that step and get a wild caught animal, they would do the research and at least know what protocol and procedures to take. I mean, do you have a set veterinarian? Do you have a set place that you would take a feek to go get a fecal, or is that something you just look up or?
So what I used to do, which is not what you should do, is I had a guy.
Well, it's not
My
uncommon. People
my
do.
old
I mean,
manager at a pet store, he had access to like every medication I need. He's been doing exotics for like 35 plus years. So whenever I had a problem, I take the animal to him, and he'd just give me the dosages for free of what I needed. I've never had anything like major happen over here.
yeah.
My problem is, especially when I moved up to when I was in Maine, I moved up there. I went to an exotic vet, and because I had a problem with inflammation on my BCI's nose that wouldn't go away. Ended up it was just glass rubbing, and it started getting an inflammation. I had a small bacterial infection from it, and it was cleared up. But because I mentioned boa and ball python in the same sentence, all of a sudden it had oh geez, I don't even know what the disease is now off the top of my head.
Oh, the not neurovirus,
Nido.
the Nido, yeah.
Was it Nido? It's the one where they like
That's the
stargaze.
big snake one, stargaze and mouth gaping, and
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like immediately she was like, "It's this. That animal's gonna die. You need to test it for it." And I was like, "Okay, just give me some stuff for the bacterial infection. I'm gonna be on my way." So that's kind of been the issue. That guy, my guy, ended up moving back to his family over in Oregon. So luckily, I haven't had any major issues since then. Knock on wood. But
do you have I don't want to disclose where you live, like what state or anything, but like I live in Connecticut, and it's not easy to find
oh, you
exotic
guys are
vets near
fucked right
me.
now.
It's not easy to find.
Have you heard about your
like,
bills?
huh?
Have you heard about the recent bills?
Dude, it's an every 2 year thing though. The thing is in Connecticut, see, they're messing up. This woman's just trying to make a name for herself, and
had
she's
to catch yourself real quick.
yeah, she's gonna
This
screw herself.
lady.
She's gonna screw herself. Connecticut is a huge just like Mass and Maine. These are huge agricultural places, right? Like people buy the land that they have so they can get agricultural discounts. People keep livestock. People do a lot of things. This is like real deal, old school, original colony farmland. You're not just going to come in here and ban chickens and goats and cows and horses in New England. Like you're foolish, So she's trying to throw the reptiles in with this whole agricultural thing, and it's just. I've watched many politicians try this since I've been a kid, and I come from my family keeps horses, my family's always kept horses, and it's always been an ongoing issue in this state. And
I love the way the rural like farm pet keeping. I used to my ex had family in North Carolina and they bred horses and they had a little whatever the baby horse is.
Shetlands, ponies?
Yeah, just whatever like the baby horse is called. I can't remember the name.
Foal.
Cole. Yeah. Okay, yeah, foal. And it's one of those things where like they get bitey at that age. And every time she bites, she just slaps the shit out of it.
Horses are cool, man.
Have you know about the Urban Rescue Ranch?
No, I don't think so. No.
Oh, so this guy did like exotic farm keeping in his backyard, and he had a rhea that he rescues. And that rhea was such a fucking asshole. Rheas are like the cousin of an ostrich, so big animal that would bite. And you get a trash can and just slap it every time it tried to bite him. And then people on YouTube are like, "That's abuse. You can't do that." I was like, "There's a difference between like pet keeping and like farm animal keeping. It's two different things. These animals are dumb. You got to smack them."
Big difference. Big difference. A horse and
you get bit by a full grown horse, like you want to knock that shit off.
A horse. If you think a dog has a personality, like we've all seen dogs that will try their owners, right? Like they'll try to get away with anything. Horses are the same shit, man. Horses will bite you. They will kick you. They will go in. They'll turn your pockets inside out. Like they will shake you down. A horse is like you have to reprimand your horses. They're not like these. They're not quite as intelligent as a dog, but very different. But they're you just telling your horse no doesn't work. Like it doesn't work like that. Like,
I have a great story. So obviously, you can look at me delinquent as a teenager. My parents sent me to my aunt's farm for a summer as punishment. Like that was a punishment, getting to see animals and take care of them. Okay, but my aunt, she had this stud horse. I mean, gigantic thing named Charlie. This thing was huge, and I'm like 13 or 14, so I'm like 90 pounds. And I remember I go out to the pasture, and I'm like in the middle, so I'm way out there, and I'm feeding him carrots. All of a sudden, that bag runs out of carrots, and Charlie wants more carrots. So he starts he starts hitting me, and I'm like, oh shit, dude! I'm like, 500 feet away from the fence line. I'm not making it.
You run, they'll chase you.
That's what I was like. I don't know what to do. This thing's like, up to here, nudging me for more food.
It's very funny, very fucking funny. But my whole point about the whole Connecticut thing again is it's. I don't want to say it's like a way of life out here because it's nothing like some of these, real farm states or anything. But it's embedded in this state too much for the bill as it's written right now to fly. Do I like seeing it? Absolutely not. It's nothing that makes me, comfortable. I don't like seeing that ever. I don't. I'm American, right? Like I believe in living and let live, right? Like if you're not, what you're doing isn't directly harming the person next to you. Leave people the fuck alone, man. Let like this is why America was formed. This is like for all types, to avoid and evade all types of oppressions, whether it's religious or whatever the hell it is. Let people do what they want to do. You can't just come over here. If we're not talking about lions and tigers, right? Like no horse escaped out of its, paddock at nighttime and went out and stompled and killed a group of children, right? Like we're like it's no sheep has ever went out and stole a car and ran through a mob of people. Like this is ridiculous shit. Like it's nothing that these people are doing is directly causing anyone else any harm. Even the reptiles.
It's insane how like prejudiced people are, like the general public is, and especially all these congressmen trying to get the reptiles banned. I did the ranch stuff. I used to be in the FFA, which is hilarious to say. I still looked like this in the Future Farmers of America. So I definitely got bullied there, but I got to keep sheep, and that was cool. I have definitely had more injuries keeping sheep. Those things, they'll fucking headbutt their shit. Their head is just this solid mass, man, coming at you. I remember I tried to get 2 at the same time after I successfully sold my first one, and I got headbutt, and then one like back kicked me into the gates. And so I'm getting injured through the, people ever sheep, cows, horses, whatever. There's some horror stories about cows, man, especially when you got to take the vet and you got to separate the calf from the mother. Dude, that's scary how aggressive they can be. I've never had any of this shit happen. You know what happens when like reptiles bite me? I put a little Band-Aid on my finger.
Pretty much.
And for them to be like persecuted as much as they are is absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason
sad.
for it.
That's the lack of education, though, and I'm not even I don't want anybody to get mad at me because I'm not saying that all reptiles or poisonous animals or hots should be banned, because I know plenty of people that keep them. I don't, but they should, for the public safety. They kind of need to, someone needs to know what's going on with those poisonous animals, right? Like you can't just put a horse, a cobra, and a leopard gecko in the same box. They're not the same category, right? Like, and that's what drives me nuts. That's what's getting me kind of, because it's a super, I don't want to sound controversial because I'm not saying that people shouldn't keep poisonous animals. If you're responsible and you know what you're doing and you're doing it correctly, like they do in Florida, right? Like you can keep them, but you have to have your bins labeled. You have to have individually locking cages. Like there's a protocol. There's,
the two-way exits.
If that's what somebody does and that's what someone's willing to do to keep them, then God bless them. Let them do what, what they're doing, right? Like you don't go and ban cobras and leopard geckos. Like it's not, what is it fixing? It's not like, and that's ultimately like my the question I'll ask with a lot of laws. If they make a new law or a bill or something's gonna come up, I'll often ask myself, and I take myself out of the situation, I'll say like who is this saving? Like who and what is this making better? And when it comes to this thing in Connecticut, I can't wrap my head around it. I don't understand what are you fixing? Like what are you, I would understand if there was something you're fixing. If there was someone you're saving, I would be a little more receptive to at least understanding what you're trying to do. It makes no sense. You're just trying to make a name for yourself. You're trying
I'm
to
a
make
little
a name
confused about the Connecticut because the last time this like all of a sudden started popping off, but I knew about this, like I think I posted about it maybe a month ago or so.
This is the same thing, yeah.
But before that, you guys had a bill before that where they wanted to implement permits for reptile breeding or exotic breeding. I can't remember the exact words, which I was a little conflicted with because I have some problems with there's some big guys out here, right? Like gated community, giant houses, and they're keeping their snakes in like, V28, like they're adult ball pythons. And it's like, maybe there should be someone around to come check this and be like, hey, what are you doing? You got the Joe Solowskis, the Slither Incorporated. Maybe there should be a guy to come check that shit out.
I agree.
I had a little back and forth with it internally of like, my knee-jerk reaction is always like, I don't want any government overreach coming. But at the same time, I'm like, is this a full negative? But then like a week later, it's like, now we're banning it all. I was like, oh yeah, fuck the government. Okay.
It is. It's hard when you keep animals and you keep animals the right way, right? To not think of ways and methods or techniques that could possibly help all the animals that aren't in your control. Like when you see the Slither Inc. thing and all those, the animals that were, fucking dying and the stuff there, like Dude, I
The
could
like
go on for
busload of
hours,
dead
bro.
tegu lizards, just like gross, obscene shit.
I could go on for a long time in both ways about that whole thing, and it's a lot of me for the beginning when I first started seeing those things, I was real pissed because I was like, you know what, you got all this footage, right? All this footage and all this stuff. Well, why weren't you helping the animal while you were recording all of this? Like why didn't you stop recording and get a fucking bowl of water? Like why didn't you do this? But then the other side of me is like, well, it's not their job. If they fix the one, this guy's gonna let it happen to 10 more. Like it's so I
It's the
kind of see
Petco.
both sides of
The
it.
Petco dilemma.
What happened with Petco?
Well, just the ideology of
Oh,
rescuing one leopard gecko from
yes,
Petco, and
yes,
the manager sees they sell one, so they get 3 more the next week.
yes. Which again, I don't know that that's ever gonna really. It is. See, so the more I think about it now, maybe some type of regulation of some sort does, because a lot of the guys in the hobby will say, oh, we need to self-police, right? We need to self-regulate.
I see these fucking venomous people talk all this shit. We need to self-police, no government overreach. Then the second something bad happens with the Jeff Lebowski, whatever the fuck his last
Yeah,
name is, everyone's like, keep your mouth shut. Focus on
yeah,
yourself. Don't worry about it. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
is this self-policing? So no.
yeah. He's not part of us. He's not part of what
Yeah,
we're doing.
yeah.
He's
Yet people
it's
are still selling venomous for him. He's still getting his hands on snakes. The other side of the coin is going to be, well, the problem is, like, yeah, I do think there should be some regulation. I think when you get to a certain size like this, there should be some sort of regulation of someone making sure that you're not abusing these animals, neglecting them just to make a profit off of it. But at the same time, I see how the government in the United States functions. Is that the person I want it to be? Not necessarily.
You're absolutely right, dude. You're absolutely right. But whether it's, I mean, you've seen all the animals I've seen in life, bro. People do it with birds. People do it with livestock, horses and cows. God knows people do it with cats and dogs. There's a bigger issue, right? Like there's a bigger issue. People are out there with these fucking puppy mills, dude. I mean, if you've seen probably all of these PETA videos that I've seen. I mean, it's seems like the attention always comes down on the freaking reptiles, though, right? Like, why does no one ever question But maybe they do. Maybe if we look at in model cats and dogs, because in theory, my cat and my dog, by my state, per my state's orders, Connecticut, both have to be. And I guess I'm the only real one that knows, but they're supposed to both be registered, which they are, and be up to date on their shots. So no one's going to come around knocking on my door and saying, hey, does your dog have his shots? Unless something happens, right? And my dog bites somebody or my cat, something happens, like, then nobody knows. But it's technically a law, right? Like you're supposed to do this, that, and that. So maybe they take an easier approach and say, okay, we, at least want documentation. I don't know, man. I really don't know, man. See, I could go back and forth on this for a long time, but you're absolutely right about the government just coming in and telling us what exactly we can and cannot do. It just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't seem American. It doesn't seem, like now you're telling every kid in this country you can't go out in the backyard and go catch a fucking frog. Like you can't go and flip a stone
That's
and
what
bring a
it's.
salamander home in a jar. Like,
It's tough. The longer that I'm in this hobby, I used to be like, nails. The same thing like the venomous boys. Like, fuck, no government overreach whatsoever. Like, if you want to keep a bear, keep a bear. I don't give a shit. But as I keep going more, I'm like, you keep seeing, incident after incident, and it gets to a point where it's like, fuck, dude. Like, maybe we do need someone looking at this. But I think the problem will always be like, we're not a big enough hobby to make agency ourselves for us. But maybe there should like be some like pet, like the agriculture has their own, the like Fish and Wildlife. Well, I guess Fish and Wildlife is us. They just don't do that good of a job. I just feel like there should be some sort of system implemented, but the way the government does it, it will not be the right system.
No, it definitely will, because it's pretty much just like all or nothing with them. And then somehow at the end they just want money, so.
Which I don't understand, brother. Permit systems. You get yearly, X amount of dollars for this and this. You just have to have some dude show up and check the collection. You can find people. There's ways to generate income with this. It's just the amount of work that has to go into it. I don't know, when it comes to work in the government, they're like, nah, ban it. We look good. Look at me. I'm the guy. I got reticulated pythons banned. You don't even know what a fucking retic is, but I did it.
No. When you're talking about Connecticut, it's so small. It's you're not impacting the hobby at all, dude. Like that's what kills me is like they're trying so hard. When all
There's
they got to do is look
nothing
at all
in
these other
Connecticut.
states. It's like you're not doing anything. You're not solving anything. No one, I guarantee you, and I don't know this for a fact, but I promise you, even having venomous snakes in the state, timber rattlers in this state, I'm almost certain no one has ever died in Connecticut from a fucking timber rattlesnake bite. But like no one has ever died from any reptile in Connecticut, whether they've been constricted by a snake or bitten by a venomous snake. Nobody has died, at least in the 40 years I've been alive in Connecticut. No one has died from a reptile. So you're not saving any lives. And I don't know, it's not like there's anything that's lucrative enough to capture out of the wild and go and sell. Like you're not, like, what the fuck? Again, it's just someone trying to make their name because they're not fixing any greater issue with what they're trying to do. It's again, the size of the state versus, in comparison to all the others, the rest of the country with animals that come in versus animals that go out in this little state. Again, it's one of the reasons I'm really not like stressing it, because I just don't think that it's, after all these years of them in a roundabout way trying the same thing and nothing happening, I'm kind of just like, you guys, someone
they keep
else
making the
somewhere
same
has
mistake.
sense.
They keep making the same mistake, and they put all the exotics together. You'll never get a bill passed with all exotics. Us as reptile keepers, we are not very proactive. I remember South Carolina during the talk about the venomous bill ban. I want to say it was literally just Jeff and maybe one other guy showed up in protest during that hearing.
Really?
One or two people showed up. Reptile people are not proactive when it comes to the laws. We're one of those people where it's just like, it'll work itself out. Jeff's got it. Is his name Jeff? Am I fucking that up?
Are you a USARK member?
Yeah. I've been a USARK member since the Florida Tegu ban.
See, now this is my thing, right? And I'm not really like talking shit about them.
Is the owner of USARK Jeff?
It could be. Could have been Jeff. Was Jeff? I guess I could look. But that's half of my problem, is that I donate a lot of money to USARK, right? And I don't even really sell animals like that. But I feel like it's my good deed and like my duty as being someone that's involved in this community. Like I'll always give some money to USARK whenever I see an auction, a fundraiser, a donation, something going on it. Whether it's $10 to $25, it's not much, but I'm just a regular dude, man. So I'll always donate money. I've gotten more comments and more questions from people that don't live in this state about what this little ban over the last 2 months than I have from anybody that comes from USARK. Haven't seen anyone from USARK reach out to me and say, listen, this is what you guys need to do to organize. This is what you guys need to do to who you need to write to, who you need to, these are the procedures. We're stepping in. We're going to send an attorney to speak for somebody. Like I haven't seen anything from them. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little upset.
Are you on their email and stuff?
I should be. Yeah, absolutely. I'd imagine so.
Because I always just like once a week I look up the their homepage and I see all the alerts that are going on.
Yeah, I've got that. Like, yeah, absolutely. I've seen them propose it along with like, there'll be other states. They'll give like the list of what's happening in the states. But my point is like, what are you doing to resolve it? Like, other than bringing it to my attention, which again, not to be an asshole, but I live here, so I kind of knew about it before. I don't want to say before them, but like the day the bill or the second day when the bill was proposed, I was already catching wind of it from, the Connecticut Post. So it was, I guess maybe that's not the responsibility, like maybe it's not your job to, but I was under the impression that was kind of what USARK did. Like they're like, these things are going to arise. We're going to step in. We're going to help, organize and orchestrate. And it's just, I mean, I guess they helped. What did they do anything for Florida? Didn't they hire a lawyer for Florida with the Tegus and everything? They, ultimately lost the fight, but didn't they have someone going to court?
Yeah, man, I was on the phone for like 4 hours to give my 10-second piece for that, and it was it was one of those things where like they were definitely like, it looked like paid off. Like, just, I remember the calls the judges or the congressmen were like, okay, next caller. It was one of
Really?
those where it's like we're dead in the sand. Like they're gonna ban it. This is all just performative, and it wasn't even a good performance. They were lacking. I didn't see any attention brought to hand. Just like
See,
mhm.
that
Next caller.
upsets me. That upsets me, and I know they're for us. But when you talk about like camaraderie and the hobby in general, like we were saying, with just even self-regulating and self-policing and whatnot, dude, it's like these are kind of like who we look up to as our guardian, if you will, like against the states and these regulations. And I can't count on them. They're not going to do nothing for me, man. And maybe it's because I don't give enough money, but I got a hunch that if I gave them 25 grand a year, they're still not going to do anything for me in this little last state. Like it's just
I think
and other people have,
the problem comes from. I mean, I think you hit the nail with it being such a small state, Connecticut. Nothing's going on. There's no shows in Connecticut.
nope.
It's in the grand scheme of the 50 states, it's a little bit insignificant. So it's about where we're putting the resources in. I like USARK just for the alerts that they give because I wouldn't be able to find any of this out without them. But I definitely understand the frustrations of not getting that like personal attention because it will affect you personally if it does pull through. I do think the biggest issue is there's not enough manpower, and I don't know how we get enough manpower for them or to them.
It's interesting. It's interesting thought at the least, just like some way to, like, even like a standardized, procedure, like what it just from USARK, it would be nice to see, like, should your state, propose a bill like this is what you guys do, A, B, and C, take this letter, send it to the selectman or whoever. This is what you state. This is your defense. Like, give us some type of structured argument, dude. I'm a carpenter for a living. I'm not a politician or a lawyer or an anything. I wouldn't know what to even where to start. Like, what do I say? Like, where do I go? I mean, I guess I could find all that out, and that's technically my responsibility. But
Yeah, I want to
yeah.
say, I'm looking it up right now. I want to say they do have that on. There's been so many more alerts. There's like 5 more since this. I want to say they do at the point. Well, I guess this one isn't proposed. It's just being referred right now. But I have seen in the past at the end they do give like a what do you call it? Like a letterhead for you to like email, and then they do list like the senator's phone numbers. Maybe the issue is that it's not actually. I don't know if it's in the Senate now or if it's just like a draft.
Well, remember when you were saying you saw it like a month ago? There was a bunch of shit that happened about that. So they were saying that the farmers, all the farmers and stuff, rolled up on this woman's door, like at her office, and they I guess they had gotten through to her, and she was going to amend it. She was going to amend her proposal and I guess reword some stuff and change it around. So now I'm actually wondering today if she did amend it and send it. I got to look into it when we're done with this today. I got to look more into it. So now I'm curious. It's been going on 3 months, and every time for the last 3 months, it seems like it's something new, but I haven't seen much fucking change about it. Yeah, it is what it is. Where do you see? I meant to ask you this before. What are you doing with your dry goods? Do you plan on like doing anything else? How you been doing with your dry goods in the Project Jungle? How's that going?
Project Jungle's been going good. As far as the dry goods, I think the issue right now, I mean, we're still like super small when it comes to the bioactive stuff. So what I'm planning is getting just a good quantity of the materials I need. I went a little bit too much too fast. Like we did, the jungle mix, the pro mix, the arid mix, and it was tough getting the amount of quantity I need to keep up with all of them. So we ended up cutting down a lot of that and just focusing on like the basics. You got your ABG mix, you got the pro mix, which is like the premium substrate, has better material or better ingredients inside of it. As far as dry goods, one thing I do really want to do is what are they, like the terrariums? Like those self-sustaining, jar. You plug it up. I want to sell those. I think those are really cool. I built a few for my parents, my mom and sister for Christmas. They seem to
Cool.
really love it. They have good success. My mom was like, she was constantly like, "Don't give them to me because I'm gonna." I was like, "No, no, no. This is a self-sustaining terrarium. It's easy work. It does the work for you. You just got to water it every now and then." She's even had great success.
That's
So that's definitely
awesome.
something I want to give to people, just like mini, I don't know, 8x8x12s or
Yeah,
something like that. Little terrariums with like a plant, little isopods in there.
very
Something that
cool.
would be cool. It's just about getting a wholesale for the acrylic.
Have your have you been doing good with the plants too? Have the plants been moving for you?
Yeah, it's been winter's been tough. These are part of the growing
Shipping?
pains because I think we've only been. I want to say we've only been for this will be a year coming up of actually like launching the website and everything that goes into it. So this is part of the growing pains is we've been having
Yeah.
some bad luck with the winter. We've had that cold front that happened a couple weeks ago.
Dude,
That really messed
terrible.
me up because all my Christmas orders went out then and they all died because of that cold front. So
Shit.
that's just other than that, overall we're doing great. It's just the winter thing I got to nail down a little bit better. We've upgraded our insulation, so instead of newspaper, I use coordinated cardboard,
Okay.
and then what is that stuff? It's like cotton stuffing to stuff the inside, try to
Uh-huh.
insulate the plant better, and then we use like packing peanuts with the heat tape. But I think actually we'll start insulating the boxes themselves as well
Okay.
during the winter time to try to get that going.
Well, that's interesting. I was just going to ask you too. How would you ship a plant in the winter time? Hmm.
The plant shipment's
Like,
tough because people don't, it's at the end of the day, it's like a $7 plant, right? People don't want to
yeah,
spend 30-40 bucks to overnight or 2 day shipping,
yeah,
which kind of leaves it up to me to, okay, I got to make sure this thing has all the parameters it needs for the,
yeah.
3 to potentially 5 days
Winds up
in
costing you
transit.
more than the plant.
Yeah, it's rough. I'm gonna figure out. I've got some ideas going on how to fix it, but for now we're kind of not advertising too much until this real bad cold front gets out, and then just keeping an eye
That
on
makes
temps
sense.
when it comes to shipments.
Makes sense. How does your family? Is your family pretty supportive of what you're doing?
Oh
Are they
yeah,
proud of you?
yeah. I was well, you've heard my story. I was the burnout going nowhere,
Yeah.
so they're pretty stoked that I at least found something.
That's
It's
awesome,
funny.
dude.
It's funny how different. So like my sister is like the general. You went to college, got her master's, is in the like pharmaceutical career path, going to like labs and stuff. And then there's me who didn't get past. I think I dropped out at like 10th grade or something, but still managed to do something that
That's good.
piqued my interest.
That's awesome. That's good. It's always good when you have support. Your girl helps you a lot. Your girlfriend helps you a lot with everything. She's super supportive of you.
Oh yeah, yeah. She comes to all the shows. We have her, and now my buddy Connor comes because now we I went from like a one table to with this now we do like 3 to 4 tables worth of product. So I need at least like 2 people to help me out in making sure that
Nice.
everyone's accounted for and gets their stuff.
Yeah. Did you start any shows this year yet? Have you vended this year yet?
No, man. I think that winter is so tough for me because the
Yeah.
plants, we're having plant trouble. Can't sell geckos right now. It's too cold. So really, thank God, I did the social media or else I'd be asked out. But it's always a rough couple of months. But we don't have a show till like I think April is when it starts. I think it's like
Okay.
New Hampshire or Mass is the next show, and then or it's either New Hampshire or Rhode Island, and then I want to say Flora Fauna is in April as well. I'm gonna try to get on that.
Yeah, that'd be cool if you go. I'm definitely going to be back up there again this year too.
Did you go? Did you go last year?
No, I went the first year. That's when I met you. The first year. What was the first year you were up there? That was the first year, right? Or was that the
Was
second
it?
year?
I think it was the second year.
All right, yeah. So that was when I went. That was
Yeah.
my first time up there. I think it's cool. I didn't stay the weekend though. I got to be honest. I drove up because I live close. I'm only like 2 hours away from there, so I drove.
I was like 4. I woke up at like
So
5 in the morning and drove up and was late.
Saturday morning and left Saturday night. But it was a decent ride. It was a pretty ride. Cool place. The venue's awesome. That building is
Is incredible.
beautiful.
I say upstate New York, it looks like they turned the saturation up on the greenery. It is a really, once you get out of the highway, it is a pretty drive up there, and it's a beautiful venue. I think the issue is it's almost too lax. So as a vendor, I know a lot of people backed out of vending after that like first and second year because no one was really buying. Everyone was just kind of there to chill. But I did good. I think I made like a couple grand at that show. That was one of my better shows. So I'm gonna vend again. I'll just do one table. They're kind of expensive, which is the issue, but it's a cool place. And then you don't have to pay for like the multiple day pass if you buy the table.
It's I was just gonna ask about that too. How it seems to be. I mean, like I personally went there to go buy animals, but it seems as far as the vendors and whatnot, it seems kind of like a gathering spot. You know, more like a social event. You know, like I almost felt bad. Like I was like, I hope guys up here are selling animals. You know, so I'm super good buddies with Boris from BB's Crested Geckos.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
He wasn't vending, so I'm like, damn, if he's not vending, like, what's going on up here, you know? So when I met him up there, and he was just hanging out with everybody that sells geckos, you know, he's friends with everyone that's friggin' sells animals. I was like, this is why, man. I was like, I hope these guys are at least making enough money to pay for their trip. Like, shit. But
yeah, it was a long trip. I made out pretty well, but then again, this was also like prime time in the Crested Gecko market. I was selling super Dallas for like $1,100. It was a great. Now those same geckos are like worth $200 maybe.
Really, that much it's changed?
Yeah, it took a big dive. Flora Fauna was also like that's where you bring like the best of the best stuff. But I don't think I could sell Super Dow right now, like a Juvie, for more than $200 at this point. Because I'm not a name brand guy, and I had the same problem. Luckily, Richie was there, but if not, like I don't really know many of the New Cal people. I'm more of like the Tokay Forte than the New Cal stuff.
Huh. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like you're known for a little bit of everything, man. I mean, that's why I thought about you when I went. I really wanted to do a podcast with someone about, no offense, but like coming from nothing into a successful business. You know, like I wanted to talk to someone, and I kind of wanted it to be in the New Cal realm. Like, I just feel that people, and I know it's far fetched, and maybe times are a little harder now than they were a few years ago, like we're talking about. But you could, in general, fall in love with a pair of animals in any species, really. And if your passion is strong enough, you can turn that into a side hustle, you know, even more than a side hustle, a business, a job. You know, you don't have to stop with just two animals. You can continue to evolve and progress. And, you know, like the whole Josh's Frog story, you know, the guy had a couple frogs in his garage and turned it into a multi-million-dollar business. And
yeah, him and his apartment building filled to the brim with the fruit fly cultures. That's a cool story.
I see you doing the same thing, man. Like, and it's, you know, maybe more so than the Josh's Frog thing, because I've kind of seen the inception. I've seen the beginning, and I've seen where you're at now, and I see the buzz that your name makes, and I see the following, and it's, you know, you're just on your way. You know, you're on that upward climb, and it's inspiring for people. You know, I always say on the other podcast, you know, that the one little kid, the one girl, you know, the one little girl with one leopard gecko is just as important to the hobby as like you know, Brian at altitude. Like I really mean that. Like I genuinely believe that a kid with just one pet, if you have enough passion, if you have the interest, you can, there's no reason that you cannot do what any of these people are doing. Now, don't think that it's easy. You know, I don't, by any means, I'm not trying to say that what you've done or what everyone else has done is easy.
That's the only thing it takes is the spite. Well, I guess for me it was spite because I never wanted to go back to that 9 to 5, so that's what fueled me for so long. But just the dedication part and the consistency. That's really the only. You don't need money. I think I started off with like, I don't know, $300 or something. It was the same thing with I believe Kevin McCurley. He started his business with like $7,000 and turned it into Nerd. Like, you can do it. You just gotta keep pushing. and make
Mm.
you can make right moves, wrong moves. I've made more wrongs than rights, but you always learn from them.
Right.
And then yeah, anyone can do it. I guess like technically not everyone, but anyone. Like it don't take money, it don't take charisma. Look at me, like I
Passion.
did it. You just got to be passionate about it, and you got to
Passion.
keep going. Even I'm used to post videos and get like 19 views, but I'm still making 3 a week just because you see the dream there.
It's the truth, dude. It's the American dream, I guess, if you will. It's a beautiful thing because when the whole COVID thing happened, right? Like you've seen how many I've saw. Like everybody and their mother bought two geckos and started a gecko business, right? Like everybody had a
Oh, what a time to be
paid for a
alive, man.
logo, had a we specialize in this. Like you literally just bought two animals a week ago, but yet you specialize in this, that, and the third, which is great. But like so many people had this ambition, it really it died and went away because I could probably name like 10 people that started those businesses or brands or whatever, you know, during COVID. They're still around now. Like half of them are gone. So maybe they didn't really, I'm assuming they really didn't have the passion because you can't say that you lost the passion because I mean,
I don't
they
know how
can
you
really
lost the
technically,
passion in between 2020 and 2021. It's crazy work. I can see a
it,
lot of people getting burnt out thinking too big. I mean, we were getting those sweet, sweet stimmy money, brother.
yeah,
The best thing
yeah.
that ever happened to me is the last job. That woman hated my guts, and so she laid me off, and I got my stimulus and unemployment. I was making like I don't know 2-3 grand a month, so I went and I invested all of that. That's how I got like all of my camera gear and everything. My mic was I just spent all the stimulus money beefing up the YouTube stuff and the production value.
You brought up a good point that I don't want to keep you all night, dude. Like you can tell me to shut up at any given time. What burnout is it's ironic because it's come up about 5 times this week with different people I've talked to. What's your opinion on burnout? What do you do to keep it at bay? What do you do if you do get burnt out? What's your stance on burnout in the hobby?
Oh, I was burnt out up until Project Jungle. I mean, especially like when I started like I say mass producing, but mass producing at my scale of like crested geckos using all these rack systems. It was getting to the point where like I mean, nothing was dying in here, so it's not like a slither situation, but like the enclosures looked bad. It was just a twig and some cork bark. I'd have to like make sure I filmed a certain spot so you don't see the poop that's over there that's building up, stuff like that. And it just got to a point where like I just wasn't happy going into the room, and I just wasn't happy with the animals, how everything was going. So I made that change. Started with that one right there, the morning gecko enclosure that has like 5 babies now in it, which is really cool. And that kind of took over, and it kind of like reignited my passion with all of this stuff. But I think you definitely go too big too fast, and especially if you're not acclimating. I mean, we talk about acclimating animals. If you're not acclimating yourself to all the work that goes into it, like if you start out, I start out with a pair, so I'm slowly, and I got to a point even where I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, like I can't even enjoy this anymore. I'm just cleaning so much paper towels, food every day, like it's getting annoying. But the people that like we said, the COVID people going in, they bought like 10 adult crested geckos, 10 adult crested. You're thinking hundreds and hundreds of eggs on a species and a job, let's say that you have never done before, and you go from zero to literally hundreds in one season. You're definitely going to experience that burnout.
That's real, man. I think people experience it in different ways and different levels. It's a pretty complex topic. I think that a lot of people. I think it's natural. I think it's a lot more natural than people think that it is. I think that we can get overwhelmed. Like something brings us joy, so we're like, wow, more of it'll bring us more joy. But that more isn't always joy, right? Like when you can't go out with your girlfriend or you can't do anything that you used to enjoy other than the animals because you have to dedicate that time to the animals and it becomes a job when it's technically not your job. You're going to start questioning what you did, and especially if you're not making any money. Like any money off of it. It
Yeah,
can
I have
be
no idea how these people do it that have like 100 geckos and work 40 hours a week. That's like insane dedication. Is that you? That's insane dedication.
200 animals, bro. I've
I
got
just
about
made a
close to
video.
200 geckos. I work probably 50 hours a week. I got a dog, a wife, and a cat. It's but in my defense, it's really what brings me joy. Like I was a very young, dumb kid. Like I got myself in quite a bit of trouble. And I value my time in the house now. I value my time at home. I value things that I guess a lot of other people are still experiencing in life. Like I don't need to go to bars. I don't need to go to parties. I don't need to go to clubs.
I've never, to this day, I've never been to a bar and I've never been to a club.
See, you're not missing shit, brother.
Encroaching, I'll be 30 this year. I'm just never, I don't drink anymore.
Just that whole on the go lifestyle. I lived my youth that way. Always, when everybody wanted me to be home and just be in the house and with the family, I always had somewhere else to be, somewhere else to go, something else to do. And I paid dearly for that, and now that I'm 40 again, like I said, I have a better understanding of what really matters in life. And it's home, it's family. I bust my ass at work so I can have these things, this house and my TV and the utilities. Like that's what
and a hot
I'm
shower
working for. Yes. So I enjoy these things. And I so when I come into my lizard room, it's not really a task because I not saying that I'm different than anybody else because God knows I'm not, but I really, really, really enjoy the animals that I work with. I really enjoy building these little mini jungles and, these mini rainforests. And it's like, to me, it's like having animals, keeping plants, building models, if you will, because I'm always constantly designing and restructuring enclosures. I love photography, so I'm always
that's the best
around.
part. I just did the standing eye enclosure because I wanted to utilize bamboo for both the Clemmer and the standing eye, and like even looking before, I was like, yo, this was it kind of failed. It wasn't doing very well, so I was like, I'm just going to scrap the whole thing and build a new one. It's always like another cool little task to do, and I think it definitely stems from being passionate about what you do. I wasn't very passionate. I've kind of like lost my passion with the crested geckos. And so when you lose that and you have to care for hundreds of them, it's like, I think that burns out a lot more. Like I've never been burnt out with any of my Tokay gecko chores or anything like that. And, like I said, we started the Project Jungle. I took the realization and realized, I'm not very passionate like I used to be with this. There's way too many being bred. So we cut down tremendously on the cresteds. I think I only breed I think we only have 5 or 6 girls breeding this year, and then probably next season we'll cut that down a little more as well.
That's where I'm at with them too. I mean, I have 200 total geckos. I don't have 200 crested geckos. I got 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 pairs of crested geckos. But I enjoy them. Like I said, I could never breed 200 freaking crested geckos. I mean, I would be everything that I'm saying.
Yeah, what I meant producing babies. I didn't breed 200.
Shit, probably fucking can, to be honest with you. The way these things pump them out between them 7 pairs, fuck, I bet you I do make 100.
I sold my empty back project, and that's the great thing about like the bioactive substrate. Yeah, I sold the empty back projects. I just didn't really care for it. It wasn't selling well, and I just kind of wanted to keep like the morphs. So my Cap and Lilies, and then my Super Dells. But I sold the empty back project and just kind of laid that bin to rest. And I ended up putting a trio of cresteds in there. I moved some stuff around. And I go digging for eggs, and I find this like full egg, and it hatches out in my hand, and it's a fucking empty bag. So they were pumping them out in like December when I thought everything was done. There were still eggs in there, and I ended up hatching. So I still have 1 empty back crested gecko that'll be listed for sale. It'll be my forever last one.
It's kind of cool, dude. So your animals, when you had a bunch of crested geckos, were they shutting down for you? Did they like stop laying for you at any point?
Yeah, eventually, but so I guess
mine never have stopped, man. In all these years, Dakota, in all these years I've been breeding these fucking things, I can't get them to stop, bro. I cannot get them to stop. I want them to stop.
Do you have
collect
does your room
eggs a week?
Do you just have a reptile room?
Yeah.
So mine goes through like a natural cooling process. So like it's pretty chilly. It's around like it gets to around 68 to 71 in here for like ambient, which is why there's like so many. I use workshop lights for any like ambient stuff to just kind of boost that basking heat lamps. But doing that cooling cycle, especially when those night temps drop to like the 65, that's usually when they all stop playing.
65, so you do go that low. See, yeah, I don't mind. It's like in my house, so I can't really. I go. People have said to me before that's probably what I'm doing wrong, but I can't, man. I'm not gonna live. I have central air. I'd have to live in that. I can't live in 65-degree fucking weather, bro.
You got to build a window and just open it.
I fucking die.
That's the funny thing is like all the tough species to breed would be like the Europlatyses that need cooler temps and a cooling cycle. I got the Kieserlingi, the frog-eyed geckos. They need a winter cooling. The alligator lizards. I can't remember their Latin
The
name.
Abronias?
Yeah, Abronia. Abronias. They need a cooler period. That would be perfect for this room.
Dude, people die for a basement like you have, dude. Like Jason, my buddy Jason I do the other podcast with, is like literally looking to buy a house right now that has a basement. Like basements are clutch for temperatures and stuff. Like,
you know what you need
certain
to
species.
You need to find, because this is what I did. I used to be in we'll call it horticulture. And we did a lot of growing up there. And so we built the old facility to grow. So we had like 57 outlets, 50 amp circuit boards going for it. And then we stopped and I put my reptiles in there and I was like, damn, this is mint for the reptiles.
Badass.
So everyone needs to just find like a house that had an old grow room in it. And it's it's like the perfect, the humidity's on point, the heat's on point. You can do the same thing. It's interchangeable.
Fuck yeah, they really are. They'd be a perfect reptile house. Be an old grow op. Be a perfect fucking room. That's funny because I have a greenhouse in here, and that's like, I don't have an incubator. I have one of those little mini greenhouses. I guess it's like 5 feet tall by like 3 feet wide. You can buy them on like Amazon and shit.
Yeah.
So I just put heat mats. I'll keep like some like carnivorous plants and stuff in there with little grow lights. But I just use that as my incubator. I just have trays that I put in there, and it stays around 70, depending on what shelf, 70 to 80 degrees, all in that one little greenhouse.
I've seen people. There's I can't remember their name, but there's someone that their whole reptile like Europlatus room is. I don't know if it's in like a building or a garage, but they just set up like that. The little greenhouse.
Jack.
Is it? Yeah, he put the insulation boards and he's got a dehumidifier, humidifier, heater in there, and it's all good to go.
That's funny. That's like right in his garage. He popped it up in his garage, and it's fucking hilarious. That's funny shit.
That's what I do. If I could, I would just put everything in grow tents again. It's so much easier.
It works. Well, you used to, right? That's when you had your Tegu in. Was that a grow tent, or was that like an actual reptile tent? That big old thing you had him in.
I had one where I kept my entire Tokay collection in it, because then I would just have to ambient. I was I want to say it was like an 8x8x6 or something. And so I just put shelves in there, and I put a heater and humidifier, and so it kept everything perfect. But I still do. I have a pair of Tegus that I have in grow tents. They're broodmatting right now.
That's fucking cool, man. Do you find that it's hard to keep as diverse of a collection as you do without being in the basement, rather? Like, is it hard for you to keep all the species you have, or just cost more money with bulbs and stuff, right?
I think it just costs more money. I was actually in the video that I think will come out on Thursday or Sunday or whatever. I was talking about like mistakes. I keep like a group of specific, so like specific species, right? But they're in the same group. So stuff like the ambient heat and humidity is pretty kosher for most of the species I keep. Some, like the standing eye, do like it a little drier, a little more warmer. But overall, I keep tropical stuff. I think the Kieserlingi are the only ones that are arid. I guess the bearded as well. But stuff like that where you can keep your room set to a specific thing and then just work your animals around those parameters.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. It's convenient too. How are those fisheye geckos working out for you?
I love them, dude. One of them. So I was just talking to I got them from Root Scoots and Scales, and I was talking to them about them because I forget that because they just kind of look like a leopard gecko, right? And so I was like, oh, this thing's so cute. So I go to pick it up to put in the enclosure. The thing's like it starts fucking freaking out trying to bite me. I'm like, holy shit. And so one of them, the female, I always know which one's the male and female because the female's like super sweet. You can pick her up and hold her. I take her out if like Casey has friends over. I'll take her out. And the male is like the biggest asshole you will ever meet. He squeaks and tries to bite you and tail wiggles and runs away.
That's
But they're a cool species. She told me the parameters for like cooling, and I think I got it down. So I got the fingers crossed that we get some eggs this year.
Where are they from? They're from Africa?
Are they from Saudi Arabia?
Oh, really?
I don't know. That's
Those
the
are
one
hard species to keep, man. Like desert species like that, like those are some extreme temperature swings from like during the day to nighttime temps. Like people don't think that deserts get cold, man. Like it get freaking cold in the middle of Saudi Arabia and night times. You know?
Yeah, you need that that cooling temp, which is actually it's why they're right here. So my heater's over there with like the tokays and the nucals, so I don't have to mess with anything. So the room like gradually gets colder. So over here we're at like 66 degrees ambient because there's like the rest of the basement after that doorway. This used to be like a woodcutter shop.
Nice.
So it has like all the wooden shelves, perfect for everything. So we keep for the winter, like you gotta cool them at like 65 and then like 60 at night temps. I don't think we get low enough for 60, but we hit like I have a thermometer right there. I think the lowest we hit is like 62 degrees for night drop.
Those standing eyes you have, how long have you had those standing eyes for?
So I originally 3 or 4 years ago, I bought a trio.
Okay.
And I thought you could keep them as a group because I bought them as a trio, and so I did. I don't know if you can keep them as a group, but my personal experience is one pair bonded off and then beat the shit out of the female and scalped her. And so I had to rehab her up. I ended up selling that pair. I can't remember. I'm probably tokays, honestly. I was selling everything to get more tokays. But I had to keep her because she was all fucked up. And her head hasn't healed. And so she finally healed, and I never did anything with her. I think I was going to bring her to a show, and then she ended up dropping her tail, and I'm like, all right, I guess you're staying here. And then this year I was talking to, or maybe it was last year. At one point I was talking to Richie, and he was like, you got to diversify your stuff. Like, I know you're doing the tokays, but you're really just like cresteds and tokays right now. He's like, if you want like your table to do better, like you need to get a little bit more variety. And I was like, you know what? I got this standing eye female that's been here for years. So I bought a male for her. And then hopefully this year we've gotten one clutch, but it was a dud. But I think she looks pretty gravid right now. Actually, all the day geckos look gravid. So I'm hoping for some day gecko eggs here pretty soon.
Are they what's the deal? Are they like rare? Are they rare or what's up with standing eyes? I was talking to, Tony from Rock Geckos by any chance?
I haven't heard
I had a guest on the other day, and he was telling me about he just got a pair of wild standing eyes. And the way I didn't know much about it, so I really couldn't ask many questions about it. We were talking about rough snouts, graders and lessers from New Caledonia. But he said that he wound up hearing from somebody that someone in the middle of Texas had a pair of wild caught standing eyes, and he like dropped everything he was doing to get those animals. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I didn't know they were that rare.
I don't think you can import them in. So I think it's the fact that they can't be imported in anymore is why.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that.
No, see, because that's what we were talking about was imports. So that makes perfect sense because we were talking about importing and exporting those green New Zealand geckos. And then he was like,
the one Richie grabbed.
Yeah.
I saw those. I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Richie always posts stuff. What was it? It was the like Jamaican yellow spotted geckos. I can't remember off the top of my head.
The ones that glow in the dark.
Yeah. And he's like 1,000 for a pair, and I'm like, fuck, Richie, I gotta buy a place. I need a new place.
This little thing came up from one of these like natural pages, like National Geographic style pages that I follow, and it's like new gecko rediscovered after missing for 100 years in the wild, blah blah blah. So I send it to Richie, like, yo, check this out, man. Ain't this fucking cool? He's like, yeah, I got it. And he's like, I got him. I'm like, how the fuck do you have them? They've been missing for 100 years. How do you have them? He's like, yeah, they've been missing in the wild. He's like, they're in captivity. I'm like, sure you would. Sure you would. Why wouldn't you?
I gotta go up there. I think that's the plan. Is I'm gonna hit Flora Fauna, and then I'm gonna hit Richie's new place, and just make a little road trip out of
The
it. 'Cause
gallery thing?
I also want to see Jimmy as well. So I might
Mm.
make a week trip and just head off to see some facilities up there or down.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. I got to go up too, man. I've been giving him, sending him a bunch of bamboo. He said he's building this. I guess it'll be open in the spring, right? I haven't really asked the details or specifics, but he's opening a gallery like to the public, like
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram. He
oh,
must
he
be
posted
busy.
it. I didn't
I
see
haven't
him
heard from
post
him
it.
in a bit, but like the Gecko Gallery.
Yeah, he said he's opening a gallery. I like I said, I didn't ask the detail, but I had all that bamboo in the back of my grandmother's house. It just like grows, dude, like some big, like giant pieces.
That's happened at
So
my
like,
old place. It's like it's not the real. It's like fake bamboo. I can't remember what the actual species is, but it's the same.
hmm,
It grows like giant. The problem is it's all
yeah.
dead in the winter, and I didn't cultivate it. But in the spring, once they start going, I'm gonna go up there and cut them all down.
Oh, really? No, this shit grows is like real. In the wintertime, it's bright green right now, real bamboo. But nonetheless, he said he was like, oh, I'm building a gallery, for the geckos, like open to the public. Do you think you could send me some? I'm like, dude, not only will I send you some, I will send you more than you could possibly use, bro. Pay for the shippings and just give me some time to find the boxes for you, bro, and I'll send it to you. So he wound up setting up a cage. I think it was maybe even before those green geckos. He was like, look, the geckos, thank you. And he had the bamboo in there. I was like, no shit, dude. So I'm waiting for him to send me another slip now so I could send him some more, man. I love seeing that shit used like that. Fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's cool, man. Richie's basically like 5 years ahead of my like dream timeline.
Hey, if anybody's going to help you, dude, there's no hate in his blood, man. He's
No, I
game for
absolutely
helping
love Richie.
anybody,
I've
man.
probably
Like,
gotten the best advice from him when it comes to doing geckos. Because sometimes,
right.
I especially during like the down season, I'll be like, man, can I really do this? He's like, yo, you can make money doing this. I mean, not to stroke Richie's ego, but Richie's driving around. He's got that Lexus going on, man. He's like, you can make money doing this, brother. Like, you can do it.
Yeah, he'll show you how if you're willing to listen. He's got the advice, man. He's been a help to me, man. I can't even explain it. Like he's definitely like I definitely consider him a good friend. I could call him and ask him or Boris, man. I could call them dudes and ask about the randomest shit, man. And I mean, what can you say, man? I mean, that's one thing for sure through this gecko hobby. I mean, I made it 40 years, and I've made a lot of friends, and I've lost a lot of friends. I've met some genuine people in general in this reptile thing, some real genuinely good people, man.
See, that's what you got to get on like the gecko nerd side of the hobby, like where they
Mhm.
only use like Latin stuff. Those are the nicest people. I find, not to talk trash, but I find like the new Cal stuff, man, it's very clicky almost, or there's like specific.
Fact.
It's almost like high school, but I don't see that with like the rare stuff. Everyone seems like super friendly, even with Tokays.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably like two
It's a
people
fact.
that don't like me in the Tokay, breeding section, but everyone else super nice.
Dude, I interview him like on the other podcast. It's like half of the reason we started this whole podcast. Well, not, both of these podcasts, but the other podcast was because, first of all, there were so many people out there, right, that are doing incredible work with these animals. Like, guys are working with badass animals, but just because they're not like in the popular circle, like their word doesn't count. I wasn't having it, Dakota. I'm like, yo, fuck that. Like, these
Bro,
are the guys that are out
it's
here.
injustice that I have
Yeah.
60,000 followers because I got bit by a Tokay a couple of times for a reel, and people like Justin have like 1,000 with shit I've never seen before.
Well, that's it's not that you don't deserve the attention because you do a good job, but that's kind of exactly what I'm saying. Like it's the little group of frat boys that stick to each other and regulate who's going to be successful or who's not going to be successful. I will do anything I can to knock that wall down. There's so many people that are doing such amazing things with these animals that get no credit because they're just not in the it circle. Like that's just ridiculous. We're adults here. This isn't like, that whole middle school mentality shit is just, it's not good for anybody or anything, right? Like no information is getting, shared. Nobody's learning anything. It's the same group of dudes sitting around a table, fucking circle fucking jerking, talking about the same topics week in and week out. Like there's people out here doing valid shit, like groundbreaking work, making, helpful observations, people doing like shit
There's again,
that matters.
I guess this is just like gassing up Richie and Justin episode, but Justin with those fucking Amazon dwarf iguanas, like that's some real shit. You know, it's not sable, lily white cap, head xanthic, but it's like it's cooler. I think that shit's. I don't know. Through the time in my hobby, I find it just so much cooler getting like these, you know, junkyard random geckos that are worth $50. And like there's like crested river dragons. You can buy those things for like $75. It's like the coolest lizard I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The problem is they just don't do well in captivity, but you need someone like Justin, like Catherine, to get them going, get them breeding, and then we have this new established species in the hobby instead of the, you know,
Yeah.
107,553rd crested gecko.
Yeah. And there's no books written about those things either. Like Justin's, like, you know, he's written some articles and whatnot, and maybe even has a couple chapters or something in a book. Don't quote me on that, but
I think I remember him
work,
talking.
right?
He's like, he's got it, like, but that's the problem. Like, it's literally just out of like the graciousness of and passion of the hobby. Like, he's not getting paid to sit down. I've written stuff.
Passion.
It takes a long time to like write an actual detailed information about a species that's never been done before.
Facts. You know? And he's doing it for us, right? Like Justin's, like he's doing it for us. Like he's doing it so people, you know, can experience these cool ass animals. Like, he was even saying that some of these animals that he keeps, they're not necessarily rare in the wild, right? They're just not known. Nobody pays attention to them. Nobody studies them. They're not you know, they're not all of them are super rare animals. Like, you know, obviously some are, but it's just a lack of information. There's no information. And in a lot of animals, I would imagine people don't keep them because of the lack of information, right? Like, there's no information. Nobody can figure out how to keep them. Nobody can do anything. Who wants to take the chance? You know, it takes a specific type of person. It's going to be like, oh, fuck it.
That's me, always thousands. I don't care. Another good example is actually like a specific one was just like last week with Armin, my Anolis macuba. I believe the female laid an egg. I have to go digging in there, but I can't find how to incubate Anolis macuba eggs. Like, you can't just Google. So I have to go to Armin and be like, hey, how do you, it's stuff like that where like there's no information out there. You have to go to the source. And Armin, I don't know if Armin was the first or who was the first, but one guy just had to test that out and see, you know, well, which incubation works? How do we figure that out?
That's super cool too. I almost forgot for a second that you were doing the Anole thing. Do you have any more intentions to keep going with the Anoles and doing the Armin style thing with these super rare unworked with Anoles?
I might. I don't know. I keep going back and forth, and like I should stay with like the gecko side of things because it's kind of on brand. But I do like the Anoles. I think they're cool. They're a lot more out and about, and especially now that they settled in, I can see I feed them, and I can get like those reels now that Armin gets of them eating, which I always think is really cool. So I might keep pushing. I guess it just depends on how this season does for me, and that'll kind of like be the factor.
You know? You'll feel it. You'll
but
have
there's definitely more of the little micro anoles that I'm interested in. But there's also a bunch of micro geckos that I'm also super interested in.
It's validating work, right? If that makes any sense, which I'm sure you've experienced, you know, working with the crested geckos, you kind of got to do a lot or produce some really, really, I don't even want to say incredible stuff, but unique stuff consistently to make any type of name where you can go and get some animals and it still doesn't do you any, you know, bring you really any validation other than like personal instant gratification, you know, hatching out a crazy looking crested gecko, but successfully keeping some animals or animals that nobody does keep. Like there's a lot to say about that, right? Like if two people keep one species in this country and you're one of them, like that's like legit work, man. Like that's real work.
That's what I do. I want to get on that Colodis train so bad.
Yeah.
I might do it. I really should. I need to save up for a new facility, but I might pull the trigger on a pair of Colodis because I think there's only, from last time I talked to Justin, there's only like 4 people. So I want to be one in the top 10 producing the Colodis species.
I think you could do it. I think you have all the makings, all the proper makings to be one of those successful people. I think you do. You got enough to keep you occupied while you're raising and honing in the species, if you will. And you got the patience and obviously the dedication to that's something you should probably. I mean, who the fuck am I to say it? But that's something that would be cool to watch you do, man. That's cool.
Yeah,
That'd be
it'll
interesting.
be a fun time. That's
Hmm.
gonna be that's kind of like this year's thing is I don't really want to I need to save up for a new place. I don't really want to buy anything new. Definitely went crazy this year. Now it's about honing that in and making sure that
Yeah.
I can reproduce. I don't want to make the mistake of 3 years ago of getting this and keep going and not producing anything. I want to make sure I can successfully breed and sell everything that I work with right now.
What's your main money makers? We're gonna wrap this up soon. I feel so bad, man. I just keep fucking
I'm
talking
not
about
doing
everything.
anything today.
What's your like main producer right now? Like, what do you breed? It's like guaranteed money for you.
Tokays.
Really?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I guess this will be the first year. I had a bad year for like 2 years. I had a rough year with them, and I think that was just the constant moving and then not being able to like. Now everything's like settled in. I've got everything dialed in again. They're producing like crazy. I think we have a total of 30 eggs, and this season hasn't started yet. So those 30 eggs are still from last season. That's the problem.
Still incubating?
They
30?
take
No
they can
shit.
take up to 200 days to hatch, especially if they hatch like in the fall, because that ambient winter temps are going to lower, and they'll take longer to incubate. Which is another
When
reason why I don't think they'll ever be super big. Is just how long it takes. It's going to take you like 8 months before you can successfully start selling a Tokay gecko.
are any of
It
those
could it could be less. Like you could be in a hotter room, you could have your ambience hotter, and they'll hatch a little bit faster than the 200 days. But
30 eggs any crazy like anything crazy you've been working with? Any crazy morphs or anything?
no, that's this year. So this year we paired Diablo to Het Diablo. I'm gonna try to prove out the Green Galaxy thing because I'm personally unsure what makes a Green Galaxy gecko. So I have my male. Logan gave me his female that supposedly Het was produced by one with Green Galaxy blood, and we're gonna pair him. I'm gonna send him a few babies if they're visuals. He said if they're normals, don't bother. So we have that going. Candy Dot. I'm waiting. I finally hatched out my platinum girl. I was supposed to already do Candy to platinum, but she actually laid one egg. I had her paired with a visual platinum. She's a Het, and for like 6 months, nothing happened. I ended up moving that on. Logan was the next to get that male. Josh just kind of like loans all his geckos out for people, and then he gets a certain cut of whatever hatches out over here. It's a
Smart.
good model. You don't have to care for it. It's like passive income. I love it. You got to trust the people not to
Really
kill your
is.
gecko, but anyway, 3 days after I send that male off, this female lays one egg, and then I waited. And so that was like fall, and then probably it's been a couple of weeks that egg finally hatched. Unfortunately, I think it is a Het. I don't think it's a visual
Okay.
platinum. I'll know. I'll know. I probably would be able to check and see. The problem is I made that enclosure. I'm seeing the struggles. If you make an enclosure too elaborate, you'll never find the babies. So the only time I can see her if I like turn off all the lights and then come back down at 2 a.m. I'll see the gecko, the baby out. But from the pictures I sent Josh, he said it looks more like a Het than a visual, which is a bit of a bummer. But anyway, rant aside, as soon as she's old enough, the 2 months, I'll separate her, give that female a month off, and then I'll pair Candy Dot to Platinum. And I also, after that pairing, I'll pair that Candy Dot to my Paradox girl, who's still that's my import girl for last year. I like giving them at least a year to acclimate in
Yep.
captivity before pairing them.
Nice. How much are those? You don't have to give me a set price, but are those Diablos? Do they cost as much as like an albino, like a T positive albino?
I think Logan's the only one selling He's I think because he's the first to captive bred him with oh fuck, I can't remember the guy he partnered with, and I feel bad for not saying his name, but he partnered with someone, and he was the first to produce the U.S. captive bred Diablo. So I think he's the only one selling them right now as
So they're
captive
more
bred.
expensive then, right?
Yeah, he's
That'd be
doing.
super lucrative, bro. Because I saw the price of one of those albinos the other day, and it blew my mind. I was like, "Holy shit! The things that cost that much money, like
Yeah,
that's
he's. I think he's selling them for like 25, $3,000.
dude. That could be a that's a lot of money, man.
There's a
You
lot
know,
of money. The problem is, it's you got to find the issue. Like you can put that $3,000. It's just about finding the person that's going to spend that $3,000 then, which then becomes the issue in like these more niche hobbies. Like there's probably only, let's say, 20 people that would spend $3,000 on a Tokay gecko.
Really, you
I
think
would.
so?
Yeah,
I
I
mean, I
did.
would too. I absolutely would. I've spent that on Chihuahuas, but if I knew that it was that rare and you had the chance to be like one of the first two, because there's still not many people working with either or, to still have that opportunity to get in on the beginning of something, like it makes them super valuable. Like it's
And that's shelves. It's a stabilized market right now. This isn't like cresteds, ball pythons, where
Mhm.
like it's $3,000 and
Yup,
then like a couple of years it's
yup,
going to go down to $400. I've
yup.
only seen Tokay gecko more prices rise. I
Yeah,
think this is
for
the
sure.
first year, and that's for me like bulk importing, so spending like thousands and thousands of dollars is where I got like a discount on it. But even the het, I don't remember what I spent on the hat, but it was like even with the friends discount, it was still like easily over $1,000.
See, in general, Tokays have, I mean, not to keep dating myself, but when I was a kid, you could get a Tokay at just about any, obviously all wild caught, but they were like $10, $15. You can get a Tokay.
Yeah, they're
For, I mean,
still
obviously
10 or
all wild
15
caught.
bucks. That's the funniest thing about this. You can still get Florida imports for like $20 at
Really?
Strictly.
Yeah, 'cause I got my regular. Well, I guess mine's a from Richie, a het albino, but I got it for $200, man. She's just a regular looking. I would never. I don't have any intentions of breeding her, but she's het albino, 100% het whatever
Oh,
the
I
hell
think
she is. I paid $200.
I have to talk to Logan, but I think we were gonna do a thing where he gives me a pair of his POS hats to try to prove out for him for
See,
albino.
see, and that's my point. Being is that a regular looking Tokay gecko, captive bred. She's captive bred. Is $200, and I paid it with no questions asked. So it's a good thing, is what I'm saying. Even that bottom number has consistently risen over the years and is not going to be dropping anytime soon. You know,
Especially the great thing is even with the importation coming in, because that's always a huge factor, is cost of wild caught versus cost of captive bred. But people seem to be getting on the line of captive bred is the way to go.
for sure. I've had both. It's hardly even a question unless you're breeding. And you find some crazy wild caught morph or something like that. If you just wanted a Tokay for a pet, wild caught is not the wave, man.
Even with breeding, man, when it comes to the Tokays, just the imports, they can't handle the numbers that captive bred can. So when like personally, because I've had massive failures, like if you breed them too soon, they'll drop. There's like underlying health conditions, renal failure. All of a sudden, like an animal lays its egg, crashes, drops. So like with my imports, I only push my imports to about like 2, maybe 3 clutches max before separate. Usually at 2, I separate, and they may lay a third clutch. But with captive bred, I mean, as long as you pump them with calcium and food, I've got the Green Galaxy girl. She gave me 8 or 9 clutches. The granite to het granite, that girl's given me like, again, I think I've got like 10 eggs in there that are starting to hatch now. Like the
What's
captive
the
bred, they're
granite?
just, what was that?
What's the granite look like? Which ones are the granite?
Granite's the completely gray with black spots, regular eyes.
Those are awesome. Those are awesome. How much do you sell those for? How much would a baby of that one of those be?
So granite up into I think probably so granite's not a we haven't been able to readily produce granite. It's a weird mutation that I was actually we did like a Tokay talk, and Logan was hypothesizing that it might be chromosome based on whether that gene is expressed or suppressed depending on like the sex of the animal. Where we
Yeah.
have studies, no, not studies, but like anecdotal observations from like Denise. She's been working with the granites for like I don't know 7 or 8 years now. Just show like males are more likely to visually express it versus females. But I think we're getting to the point where now we're like 4th or 5th gen into this that we can readily produce granite with specific lined animals. So when that comes out, I know who has them. I know how much he wants. I think I'm going to spend like close to 10 grand
Oh, that
on a
much shit.
pair of visual
Wow.
granites that can produce granite babies like just readily. But the issue is, even like I say POS het granite or het granite because it's not a proven thing. They usually just hatch out normal. And then over time, that gene can express itself within a period of like 6 months to 2 years. It'll go from a normal looking gecko,
Okay,
start
so
changing red for black spots, blue to gray. And then you have a chance after that for it to progress even further into what we call like pied or leucistic.
okay.
and that depends on the line. Some create like a patternless white gecko with black eyes. You'll get some lines that have like the blotchiness of the pied, which I think is why there's a confusion between like leucistic and pied, even though they all come from the granite blood.
Really? Yeah, I'm confused, but I know I'm interested. I love the species in general. What's like the most affordable morph of Tokay? Like what would be like an entry level morph? What are you guys making the most of, or like the other than a normal? What's like the most readily available mutation?
Reduce and patternless.
Really?
Yeah, Reduce was my first morph gecko like investment. I think they used to be I don't know how much they are anymore. I haven't produced one in a while, but it's a simple codon gene, so you can make them immediately. I think they probably $300-$400, and
Oh,
then
that's not that
patternless
bad.
are probably around like 500.
Nice. That's still a nice chunk of money. You know, that's still not that we do this for money, but it's rewarding, right? Like
It's,
that's
I,
more than a
it's
crested
funny at this
gecko.
point in time. I'm like, oh, 500, oh, easily. The pair of Clemmer, I remember Richie was like, yeah, just give me 400 for him. I was like, oh yeah, no problem. But I still remember all those days when I was either talking to Morgan or Denise. I think it was Denise, because I bought my first one from her. She was like, "Yeah, if you want to get into morphs, I have this reduced. It's 400." I was like, $400? I don't know, man.
That's funny. That's fucking great. All right, brother. It's almost 2.5 hours, man. We've just been fucking bullshitting. I'm sorry that I didn't like stick to the script. It's just hard talking to you because you got so much different shit, man. And it's like I'm just like curious, like a kid in a candy shop when I talk to people with collections like you.
No, I always
But it
love
was
talking,
a
shooting the
complete
shit.
pleasure, dude. Like I can't thank you enough for coming on and literally teaching me, you know, especially about the Tokay stuff, man. It's like something I'm super interested in, and I'm dyslexic as all hell. So unless I get an answer to a question that I ask in a way that I ask it, I just don't process it. But you
I'm the
helped me
same way. I'm
with
not.
a few
I don't think
things,
I'm
man.
diagnosed dyslexic, but
I
I'm
am.
the same way, especially with like reading and stuff. It's super difficult for me.
Yeah, man. So it was a total pleasure, man. Again, I can't thank you enough, dude. Honestly, I wish you nothing but the best. I don't think you need my praises or my luck. Like you're doing great with everything that you're doing. Um, keep it up, kid. I honestly, I wish you nothing but the best, man. You got a great business sense. You have, you know, talent. Yeah, let's just say that you have lots of talents, and it's good to watch you to hone in on it, man. To watch you grow, to watch you progress, and you know, take your passion and turn it into a business. It's been a real pleasure, man. It's been a real pleasure watching you, man.
I appreciate it, man. I do.
All right. Do you have any, you know, I'm sure everybody knows where to find you, but let everybody know where they can find you. Anything maybe you're working on or want to promote real quick, your website.
Yeah, you guys can find me at Dakota Blue Exotics for all socials, and then dakotablueexotics.com. We did just release, we have our first Tokay gecko available for 2025 that was just listed on the site. So if you want a
Awesome.
captive bred and born potential het green Galaxy, because I haven't proved out if it's a recessive or what, you can get yours today.
Hell yeah, guys. Go buy that thing because I might. All right, guys. I'll catch you in the next one, man. I got to figure out how to stop this.